Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Mike and David and Zach. How much do you guys like sand?
I think it depends on what type of sand it is. If it's like sand from the beach and I'm presently at the beach, it's cool. But if it's like, I guess it's not the type of sand, it's when as opposed to where it's from, right? Like sand at the beach while you're there is great. But sand at your house 6 hours later is like significantly less cool.
I mean, the clear answer is that as ridiculous as some of the dialogue can be in the prequels, I actually agree with Anakin Skywalker. I hate sand. It doesn't matter if I'm at the beach. I hate the sand. One of my favorite places to vacation is Aruba, and Eagle Beach is where I stay, and it's considered a top 5 beach in the entire world. And when I say the sand still sucks, it still sucks because it gets everywhere. And Kyle, you know, having children, it gets everywhere.
Oh yeah, kids are incapable of like not tracking sand everywhere. We went to the playground
ridiculous
this weekend, and they had a sandbox, literally just like little 4x4 sandbox, and we could have sand everywhere in our house. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. See, it's not for me. I'd rather sit by the pool, and I'm not even a pool guy. But it's just one last thing to worry about. Of course, kids love sand, so I go to the beach regardless of that situation. So you make those sacrifices, but sand sucks.
I mean, I'm pretty neutral about it. Last time I went to the beach, I went to Vero Beach because I live in Florida now. And, I felt kind of neutral about it. I don't really have any strong feelings either way. But there's an interesting person who was announced who is going to be in the game who has a very poor relationship with sand.
Is it actually poor, though? Like, I actually think his relationship with sand is pretty good. He's able to understand sandstorms, not dust storms, and like how they work and make sure his friends are inside, and like he's able to pod race and not get sand in the engines. Like he's clearly actually pretty, for how much he hates it, he works awfully well with it.
I mean, he also finds out how quickly Tusken Raider blood looks on sand too, so I mean, there's a yin and a yang there.
Right. He's good at painting, It's great.
Do you leave like blood spills when you murder somebody with a lightsaber? I thought it just instantly fused.
I don't know the mechanics of it all. I'm sure there's someone can tell us about cauterization.
Yeah. So I think, canon has changed a lot, but correct me if I'm wrong, in A New Hope, when Kenobi slices that dude up in the cantina, there's blood everywhere.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah. I remember that.
I think it's just kind of like it goes with the flow. Sometimes it cauterizes, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe that's because Kenobi hadn't used that lightsaber in like a million years too. So maybe it took a little bit. Yeah, it took a little time. Took a little time to get powered back up to full power. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is like, if you, this is gruesome, but I'm gonna go with it. So right. if you cut somebody's arm off, right? Like in totality, like even if you cauterize it, the veins and the arteries are still trying to pump blood, right?
I guess.
Yeah. So presumably they would like plow through that.
I would think
potentially.
I mean, I don't know enough about cauterization and stuff. Like I don't think you like really. Like, cauterizing a wound is one thing, but like I don't think you can cauterize like part of the circulatory system.
This is your second week of promoting The Boys on Amazon Prime TV.
Right? There we go.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, Mike, like if they don't cauterize, then the special effects department will have to spend more money on fake blood. So we've done a cost savings there. Just editing out their arm in CG.
These are supposed to be kid-friendly movies, so
yeah. I mean, Star Wars is a show for 12-year-olds, right?
I don't know, man.
I don't agree with that.
I don't know. Listen, I let my kid watch, and I really shouldn't. He loves the Phantom Menace, actually, believe it or not. And But like the more and more that I thought about it, and we're going to talk about a character from Rebels, and once we hit in the news here, like Rebels starts off as a kid's show, like season 1, and then like it gets really dark.
It does get really dark. Yeah,
like really dark.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I actually think Clone Wars does it way more. Like, if you watch episode 1 of Clone Wars, it's like a kid's show. Like, it's like Yoda Baby Shark, basically.
Yeah,
and
like Yoda teaching the clones, the phase 1s about patience. Right?
Yeah, but it is super kiddie. And then, like, if you compare it to, like, the last season of Clone Wars we just got, like, it's I don't know. The contrast is real.
The thing about it though, and this happened in season 7 too, there are kind of like those filler episodes that kind of bring it down a notch or two. Where Rebels was just a straight storyline all the way through. There was no really filler episodes because you're kind of like following the storyline across that timeline. So like while the story gets darker and darker, there's nothing really there to lighten it up. It just continues to get more dark. And I don't want to spoil it. I know it's been on for a while, but I still don't want to spoil things. But like in the final season, there's a certain scene that kind of like really, really hits that note that I'm not going to say who's involved in it or what happens. I know you know what scene I'm talking about, but like all the culmination of Rebels from all those seasons just kind of like gets there. And you realize that it is no longer a kid's show. It is a kid's show, but it's really an adult show disguised as a kid's show.
Yeah, it's like I feel like somebody like storyboarded all this stuff. I feel like Disney and Lucasfilm was like, we're gonna make a kids show, and in the back of their mind, they were like, this isn't gonna be a kids show.
I mean,
like,
it works out for us because that is great content for FFG to pull from, which they have with Sabine, and they have in other games, and we'll discuss that further in this episode.
What if all the fans were just children in adult bodies?
I mean, listen, I'm 29 years old, and I can tell you right now, I am definitely still 6 years old when it comes to time. I mean, like 6-year-old me watching Star Wars is still me at 29 years old. Just like my kid loves Batman. He's 3 years old, okay? And we're talking the other day like, oh, well, maybe it's a phase. He won't love Batman. I looked at my wife. I'm like, honey, I'm almost 30 years old. I still love Batman.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like, that's just how it is.
There
like,
shaking her head. Like,
yeah. I mean, I have him watching the 90s cartoon that I grew up with. But am I making him watch that for him? Or am I watching it because subconsciously I also want to watch it? And I'm double dipping 20 something years later. So, yeah, we're just kids in adult bodies appreciating the dark work of Lucasfilm here with Rebels and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes my daughter will go to play with like my Legion models, and my wife will be like, "Sweetie, don't play with Daddy's toys." And I'll be like, "They're not.
They're not toys."
Well, actually, yeah, she's right. Don't do that.
Now, is she not doing it because they're toys, or because you don't want her touching your stuff?
I mean, both. I actually do let her play with some of it.
Just give them the HH12,
like the hard plastic stuff. That stuff is like indestructible. So
no, unless you step on it.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's not stepping on them. But
that was a joke geared at you.
No, I did that. Yeah, I did that. I stepped on one of Mike's stormtroopers. I think this was the first time I played a game at your house.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I don't know how he fell off the table. We were both wearing shoes. I'm walking around the table. I hear a crunch, and I'm like, "Ooh."
He's still alive and well.
Yeah,
I mean, he snapped at like his ankles. I just glued him back on, and that was the only damage. He doesn't even look like he's been broken.
You know what? You know what though, Kyle? Maybe you should just lay out some Legion models that you don't care about anymore, or maybe some Warhammer models. One night it's dark in the house, you lay them out on the ground that lead to your bedroom, and make your children step on them like you step on their Legos. Get them back.
No.
You laugh.
Obstacle course.
You laugh. My daughter stepped on a Lego with bare feet the other day, and did what all adults do when that happens. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it feels.
Now put your toys away. Yeah. For real.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no.
Anyway, we are going to talk about Legion today. We're going to talk mostly about Anakin Skywalker.
Speaking
Spoiler
of
alert.
toys that aren't toys.
Yeah, right. grown-up toys. We're going to talk about grown-up toys today. But first, we're going to hit some housekeeping.
Housekeeping!
So we've got a bunch of new stuff on the store, mostly hobby stuff. Right, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we've got a bunch of hobby stuff up there. Sorry, you ambushed me. I wasn't ready for that.
That's all right. My bad.
To be fair, I put that in the show notes, not knowing if we actually had new stuff.
Yeah, we yeah. So I'm kind of like going through my head. I'm like, I don't think I put anything new up on the store this week, but I'll roll with that.
Not since last week, but like in the last couple of weeks, we put up new stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Not since last episode have we put new stuff up, but we have put new stuff up from Army Painter, and we've got a bunch of terrain sets and stuff. All of our pre-orders for mats are live, so if you missed out on any of the original designs that sold out, like, we're taking pre-orders for those, and we've got some new ones up there. We got a sweet city map that's very dark themed, that's up there, which is reminiscent of a recent movie, and some other stuff. So check it out, and always check out our Patreon too. If both are great ways to support us, and we appreciate everybody's thought when it goes into that sort of thing. If you're looking for board games, hobby stuff, and the other thing is, if you're looking for something that we don't carry and that really isn't carried generally, we can get a lot of stuff that's like not sourced locally. Like a lot of the Wild West Exodus stuff is not really available in the US. If you just like DM me on Facebook or on Discord or something, like, we can figure it out and get it ordered for you probably. So if you're looking for something special.
That new city mat you mentioned, that's the one with the different sizes sort of like built into the mat, right?
Yeah, it's got various, I think the Warhammer, map sizes and stuff are kind of like edged in there, as well as it's got, the nodes for like intercept the transmissions and stuff like that built into it. It's all, pretty stealthily built into it, but once you know what to look for, it's like pretty easy to tell where all those points are. So it's pretty cool. Jay designed it, so props to him on that. All of the stuff he designs is crazy good. So
it's a neat little time saver, so you don't have to. There's always a pain in the butt to like manually measure out some of these things. If you just know where it is on the mat, automatically you just slap that deployment zone marker, that objective token down. Big time saver.
Yeah, I always feel like I'm doing like trigonometry when I'm like trying to find out like where like the intercept points and stuff are, because like they're in the middle of the mat. You got to like bring one range ruler over in from the side and then another up from the top and like tee it up, and it's never perfect. And
trying to make sure where exact center is so that you know exactly where to put that recover the supplies box.
I mean, not to stray too far from some housekeeping, but like most of us haven't played in real life Legion, and like I was just sitting here thinking about, as you guys are discussing it, like putting out hemmed in and danger close on a table. We're spoiled from TTS because that seems annoying in real life.
It's a little bit obnoxious. I did that in real life. It's it's about the same. It looks bad though because it's got all those little segments, but it's not so bad. You do need more deployment zone markers than normal, is what I'm detecting. And like, I'll have it where I measure it out, and then I have like one marker on the edge, and like, okay, well, I kind of don't need this one anymore, so I'm going to throw that one in the middle, and then kind of do a frog thing over the board, But it's doesn't take that much longer, I think.
Danger close isn't too bad because it's just like you're 6 inches off the board edge, pretty much wherever it is, right? You don't really need to like, I don't know, put those markers down. You can just use a range ruler.
Yeah, I was looking at some of my old cardboard deployment markers, and I'm like, I should just get rid of these. I got a bunch of these acrylic ones now, and then I'm like, maybe not.
I'm so bad at throwing out cardboard tokens. I don't need anymore.
Yeah.
I am OC. This is like one of the only OCD things I have for Legion, but I have never thrown a cardboard token out. I have them all organized, neat little bags. Maybe I'll sell them one day. Like, here's 1,000 suppression tokens, $10. You know, like, I don't know.
These do not affect the CIS army.
Right?
When I threw out some of my 1.0 stuff after upgrading to 2.0 for X-Wing, I felt like physical pain. Because it was like, for years, I've been like, I can't lose these. And they've just been sitting in my closet, but like, I haven't been even like, some of them were like gathering literal dust, but I still had that like, I cannot do this kind of moment. Just weird.
Yeah, I actually sold a bunch of 40K stuff, my old unpainted 40K stuff last week on eBay. And it was, I was very shocked how much it sold for. Let's just put it that way.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. Because 40K stuff like retains its value pretty well.
Yeah, I had some old second edition stuff that went for basically MSRP for what like the new, much better version of the thing is. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to go through my crawl space and see what else I have here.
Did you just sell a bunch of orcs?
Yeah, it was a bunch of unpainted orc stuff. I'm like, even if I play 40K again, I can't do 2 armies. So I'm going to keep my Space Marines, but all my unpainted orc stuff. I can't bring myself to sell painted stuff, but all the unpainted stuff. Yeah, I even had one. It was like one of those old orc trucks, one of the tiny ones from second edition. And it was like missing a wheel. And, you know, I clearly put that in the description. And yeah, it sold for like more than MSRP for the new fancier looking orc trucks. And I can't decide if that's because they're just hard to get or if because they're smaller and that's like a competitive benefit.
Well, I also think that like...
because that is a thing in 40K, by the way. Some of the older models are smaller and they're actually still legal. So hardcore players that don't care about how they look want those models because they can hide them more easily. Aren't you glad we don't have to deal with that in Legion?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had any reskins yet. Let's just,
yeah,
you know, we'll see how that goes if it ever does. But like, I think that there's a lot of nostalgia in like a lot is there. There's definitely like some nostalgia buyers or collectors in that community that are like it's like buying a Mox in Magic, you know, like maybe not exactly the same because I imagine your truck is maybe a little less rare, but you know, same general premise.
Yeah, I still have the second edition 40K starter set. Maybe I should.
Is it unopened, new in box?
No, it's not. It's opened. I'm not even sure it's all there because I don't remember what was in it. I mean, that was 20 years ago. So, yeah, anyway, this is way off topic. Let's hit some Legion news.
Welcome to In the News.
So there was online Essen Spiel this weekend. And I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry, Germans. And
it's funny because they do a lot of they like make a lot of meat products, right? You know, butcher. Never mind. That was a dad joke, but
it was bad.
Is that like a bratwurst joke?
Yeah, it was bad.
Well, Essen, if it's a verb, means eating or to eat.
Well, it's a city.
It is also a city.
And Spiel is a convention. Spiel.
That's the Spiel.
Spiel. Yeah. But anyway, they had some online stuff for Legion where they basically previewed the facial hair expansions. So
seriously?
Oh man. Like all right, before we even get into it real quick. So one of them, he's talking about facial hair. One of them is Lando Calrissian, okay? Lando's, I don't know if you've seen the sculpts. If you haven't seen the sculpts, maybe we can put them in the description of the podcast or something. Or maybe Mike can just put them over our faces on the YouTube, something. Lando's sculpt is incredible because I'm pretty sure he is the first and only Legion sculpt that actually has like a smile. I don't know if any other model is actually like full blown smiling. So like to see Lando like just putting that gun up there with his cape flowing behind him, and he's got like that smirky smile. it is so spot on. Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian, and that's not to take away anything from young Lando because he was awesome in Solo. Okay, I'm drawing a blank on his real name, Donald Glover. Love Donald Glover as Lando, but Billy D. is Lando, and that sculpt is nailed like to a T. Billy D. Lando. It's awesome.
So I actually didn't realize that we had seen the sculpts until you just started talking about it. So I did like a quick Google, and you ain't kidding. He's got a smirk on his face.
He's got a full blown like smirk smile on his face, which is just so spot on. Like I'm excited that they nailed that model to a T. Like that's what Lando is, right? Like Lando is not really a rebel, but he gets drawn into it. And even so, like, here's the thing, right? Take Han, for example. Han in A New Hope and somewhat in Empire Strikes Back has like a personality. And then in Return of the Jedi, I'm not saying that his personality isn't there, but he's General Solo and he's not as like quirky and he's not as like scoundrelly. Lando, despite being, I want to say he's a captain in Return of the Jedi. I'm probably wrong.
No,
or maybe he's a general.
He's definitely General Calrissian.
He's General Calrissian. So, but he's still Lando, is my point. Like Han, he's trying to get the girl. He's trying to do this thing where he's on Endor trying to like save everybody. And then Lando's back in the Falcon and he feels at home and he's still Lando. And he still feels like the Lando that you met in Bespin City. Or like the Cloud City on Bespin, I should say. Like he still feels like Lando. So even though he's a rebel, he still has his like own identity, and I think that's what this model kind of personifies.
Are you like trying to like get us down a rabbit hole of like war changes you from who you are? Like...
No, but it could be safe to say that it does for a lot of the main characters if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, Luke at the beginning of New Hope is so different from the Luke.
He's a crybaby. I mean, he's a crybaby through it all. Don't get me wrong. I love Luke though, but he's still a whiny little crybaby in A New Hope. He gets a little bit better as it all goes along.
I don't know. He was kind of a crybaby in Last Jedi too.
Oh no! I'm talking about the original trilogy. Like by the time Return of the Jedi happens, he's matured into a much different, human being. The Last Jedi could be a whole different discussion, so I won't go there. But I would say that losing your right hand to your father in a lightsaber duel will do a lot of things to you. Maturing you is probably one of them. So yeah, I'm just glad that, again, I guess the sculpt is really all we have to talk about. I know they have a description up for the character. I did not bring up the link, so I'm not quick enough on that. But I'm glad Lando's making his way to Legion.
I am so happy that he's in the general's uniform in this sculpt and not in the Cloud City uniform. I was worried they were gonna make him in the Cloud City sculpt, but I'm really grateful for the fact they put him in the general's uniform.
Well, I don't think you can do like Bespin Lando and put him in the Rebel faction, right?
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Like, not really.
They do have multiple sculpts, so maybe it's possible.
Maybe.
But to read the description from Essence Feel, it says, roll the dice and lead your forces to victory with Lando Calrissian commander expansion. That's noted. He's not an operative. He's a commander, which is good because operatives and rebels, as we know, is a competitive spot, right?
Yeah.
One of the most infamous gamblers in the Star Wars galaxy, Lando Calrissian injects more unpredictability into your battle, keeping your opponent guessing your next move. But not every bet pays off, and you'll have to be careful not to give your enemy forces any unneeded advantages. Within this expansion, you'll find a beautifully detailed, unpainted hard plastic Lando Calrissian miniature that you can make your own with several ways to customize his cape and pose. This miniature is accompanied by a unit card, his 3 signature command cards, a flaw card, and 6 upgrade cards. So right off the bat, we know he's got a flaw card, based off of this description. And I guess speculation goes on from there. I mean, gambling and unpredictability, again, just like the pose, Lando Calrissian, like nailed.
Yeah, I love it. They did everything about this face sculpt is like, you look at some of the old face sculpts, some of the original Legion face sculpts, like Han and Leia, even I mean, honestly, even like Padme, some of those, like they've come a long
Don't
way.
get him started. That's like one subject we can't touch with Zach is Padme's face.
I mean, they're doing a great job with this new stuff. Kallus too looks. Sorry, I guess I just spoiled the next segment. Kallus
Unbelievable.
Even though he's got a helmet over half of it, it's like the features are very sharp.
It is a protective shield for that beautiful mutton chops. Okay.
Yeah, you got to protect those mutton chops from laser blasts. I mean, you can't singe those things.
I kind of hope you can build them without a helmet on.
Oh, I'll be very disappointed if you can't do like the just helmetless full mutton chop Agent Kallus. Why don't we talk about Agent Kallus since that was the second thing?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it in the opening, like with Rebels and stuff. I feel like Kallus is going to be a mixed bag with Legion players just because he's a defector. So if you play Imperials, I could see you being like,
Spoiler
Kallus.
alert.
Oh, well, I can't really, that's part of the discussion here.
So to be fair, we are now, I think, 2 for 2 as Imperials on getting defectors before their defection.
Yeah, Iden being the first one.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that's great because...
Well, hang on. 3 for 3, Darth Vader.
Ooh.
That seems loose.
He dies before he can defect. Another spoiler.
He definitely
killing
he
the
might
Emperor.
he might
did
turn
kill
to
the
the good
Emperor.
side, but he definitely doesn't join the rebellion.
Okay, that's fair.
So, but Iden and Kallus are awesome because, like, at least I feel like they are. I don't play Imperials, so maybe I can understand playing Imperials and be like, oh, well, the defectors, I don't want to play them. Where's Thrawn? And I'm a big Thrawn fan. Don't get me wrong, but they are being pulled from different media, and I really enjoy that when Legion does that. Like, I think and as much as the movies are great, I love all the movies. I love all of the media. So for them to just pull from Rebels or pull from video games and the books, it just goes to show you that the possibility, and we had this discussion with Luke, a couple episodes ago, he said that there's all sorts of possibilities. It just goes to show you that that's actually true when you bring a character like Kallus into the game.
It's interesting, right? It was once Sabine was in the game, we knew it was only a matter of time before Empire got a Rebels TV show character. I'm interested when they would start with Kallus. That's interesting. I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, where's my Inquisitor?" Right?
Yeah, I
where's
was
the Grand
expecting
Inquisitor?
Grand Inquisitor to be the first one on the block, frankly.
Yeah.
Kallus is especially in the early part of that show, though, he's the primary antagonist.
Yes, he's the main.
I love
he's
Kallus.
the main guy.
I mean, to be fair, we haven't gotten any whiff of the guy I really want from Rebels. He's
Is that
blue.
Aurelios?
He
My
runs
boy
with
Thrawn.
Chopper.
Tris.
Yeah.
Thrawn's a delicate piece because the books now are giving him a more fleshed out area where he could be in the field.
I mean,
But if you think about the old trilogy, if you think about the original trilogy he was in and stuff, I could understand how he'd be more of a space combat than he would be an on the ground. But I totally see why you would want him in this game because he's starting to become more of a ground commander than it.
I mean, he's involved in ground combat way more than Palpatine is.
oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, totally,
100%.
totally.
But I also think the books are the new books, specifically
Yeah.
the Chiss Ascendancy books, are almost fleshing it out enough that we could get a Chiss army.
Goodbye clones, hello Chiss if that happens.
Anybody want to buy some clones?
every unit has cunning.
Uh-oh.
But well, speaking of cunning, why don't we read Kallus's thing because it might be implied that he might be cunning. I don't know. It says hunt your enemies to the far ends of the galaxy with Agent Kallus, Commander expansion. So again, it's laid out that he's a commander. Ruthless and cunning Imperial Security Bureau Agent Alexander Kallus, although I don't know if that's spelled correctly or not on the website, will stop at nothing to suppress dissent and bring order to the galaxy. Now he can lead your Imperial forces as they hunt any rebel cells. Within this expansion, you'll find a finely detailed, unpainted hard plastic Agent Kallus miniature that you can customize to fit your own style. Beyond this, 7 upgrade cards. Oh, that's interesting. Lando has 6 and Kallus has 7. That's notable. including his J19 bow rifle, invite you to outfit Agent Kallus for battle, while his 3 signature command cards help you explore new strategies to seek to quell the rebellion. So speaking of his bow rifle, and Mike, since you hadn't seen the Lando model, have a little peek at that Kallus model, which I think you alluded to actually by saying a helmet. That model, I know he has the helmet on, but that model is beautiful.
Yeah, so I had seen this model. I hadn't seen the Lando one. And so we were talking about like Spiel as it was going on, or Essen, and you know, somebody remarked in Discord like, "Oh, they spoiled Lando and Kallus," and Evan immediately goes, "Oh, Kallus better have a like a bayonet on his rifle or whatever." And I like turned to the picture and I was like, "Well, dude, I think you're gonna be pleasantly surprised." And
that is not a bayonet. That is a full blood. That is his bow rifle. In like, that might be bigger than what it's scaled in Rebels. That's how big it looks on that model. But
no, it's pretty big in Rebels.
No,
if you watch that fight scene between him and Zeb.
Yeah,
and I think that's in season 1. I mean, those things are big.
Yeah, it's early on. It might be well, he brings it out in season 1, and then there's a lot of episodes where it comes out in season 2.
Are you referring to the fight that they have on the asteroid or whatever?
Oh, what an episode! That is a great
where they get like trapped together.
Episode.
There's a fight they have on. I'm not remembering the planet now, but it's like
Lothal.
Yes, they have a fight on Lothal. Good grief.
I think.
Yeah.
I think Kyle's right where it comes out in season 1, which leads to that asteroid episode.
Yeah.
Because
Kallus brags about killing his countrymen and all that.
Yeah. Well, it gives more weight to the battle because the bow rifle that Kallus has is from Zeb's home planet.
Right.
Well, if I recall correctly, it's not just from his home planet. It's like the weapon that like the honor guard for like his nation's government uses. Like it's not, it would be like stealing like a weapon from the Secret Service and like toting it around and using it to like fight Americans with, right? Like it's, I mean, not that the Secret Service really have like a signature weapon, but you get the idea. It'd be like going to the like English palace and stealing one of the like staffs from like one of those.
Oh, people. I was gonna say Captain America's shield.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That's what it would be like. So it's kind of a statement.
A little bit, yeah. And this model looks cool, but I'm definitely with you. I hope there's a helmetless full mutton chop version available.
I don't collect Imperials, but I am buying Kallus. Let's put it that way. But I'm a huge Rebels fan, so it just goes. Like any Rebels character, I'd probably buy.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm in a unique position now. I think I'm like done buying like non-hero units for factions that I don't really play, like droids and rebels. But like picking up commanders and operatives is like super. It's not a big deal, you know. You're like, oh, I'll pick up Lando. I'm not gonna buy any. I haven't bought Mandos or anything, but like $12 or $20 for Lando or whatever, and you get to play a completely different army basically. So it's like, all right, yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful sculpt, likely going to come at a very reasonable price. There's no reason not to. Like, I play Rebels, right? I don't really own an Imperial army. I own Boba Fett because, dang it, that sculpt was just so cool. And I might pick this one up just because the sculpt is great, and it's just something fun to paint.
Yep. I'm excited. All right, speaking of being excited, I'm even more excited for this next thing, which is Luke Skywalker, alternate sculpt.
We're gonna have an argument on this, I think. I'm ready for it, but let's do it.
Okay, so here's what we know.
I don't know what the argument's gonna be, but all right, let's go.
Yeah, I'm confused.
There is apparently a limited edition Luke Skywalker expansion that is being provided to stores that order direct with Asmodee. And so apparently if your store places an order with Asmodee, USA distribution in the month of November, they get 3 limited edition Luke Skywalker Commander expansions. And this appears to be like the Hoth version of Luke in the pilot suit.
Arguably the most iconic version in a lot of ways. I know Return of the Jedi one is, but there's something about that flight suit in Empire Strikes Back that I like love.
It's definitely iconic. I wouldn't say it's as iconic as Jedi in black robes, Jedi Luke, but
yeah, I'd have to agree there.
But anyway, clearly a cool version of Commander Luke, right?
It's sweet. It looks awesome. The model is great. I have a problem with how they're doing this.
Well, so here's right, and I think I know where you're going with this. They don't really give stores any sort of requirements for how to distribute these. You know, stores could give it out as tournament prizes, which there aren't really right now. Stores could just eBay them. Stores could sell them locally. I mean, there's no like. It seems like it's going to be the Wild West a little bit as far as getting a hold of these things.
Well,
and
like, so historically, the issue with, like, if you go to a convention, which is kind of where I think this was meant for, like, I feel like this was meant for Gen Con, and, like, they couldn't do it because, like, Gen Con didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So, which fine. Like, I'm glad they're still, like, giving it out or whatever. And that's an assumption, just to be clear. Like, I don't know if that's fact, but it seems like it's reasonable. But, like, in all those conventions, vendors are not allowed to touch unique special stuff for, like, very good reasons, because they end up getting scalped every time. And instead of, like, having this, like, a direct buy off the Asmodee website that, like, end users can get, they're, like, just giving it to vendors and saying, do with it what you will. Like, it's like that's the link that has always been the corrupt issue, and I'm sure that there are stores out there that will do this well, but I fully expect to see, like, 100 Lukes go up on eBay for, like, $200 to $300 as soon as I mean, I don't know how many there are, but, like, there doesn't seem to be any suggestion on limit from the article or whatever they put out.
Right. Like, we don't know how widespread this is, right? We don't know this. We have no idea of the supply.
Right. And like, what we do know is that geographically it is limited in that, like, I was reading some of the Discord posts, like, I don't think Australians can, like, get direct Asmodee distribution. Like, they can't actually purchase things as retailers from their store, so they can't even, like, be a part of it. I don't know. I have a lot of issues with it in that frame. I think the model is great. The sculpt is cool. This feels like kind of like a pitch to the running back because you're about to get sacked last minute, to kind of get it out the door. And that may be what it is. It's just, like, it feels like it could have had a little bit more thought put behind it.
Yeah, especially since there's no tournaments right now, for the most part. Like, there are some areas that are doing, you know, local games and stuff again, because the natural way to do this would be to, like, give these out as tournament prizes, right? But since that's not really a thing still in a lot of areas, I feel like their only recourse is either to wait until that's possible, which who knows when that could be, or just scalp them. So
right, or, like, they could do like a lottery or something, but that doesn't feel super great. I think, like, I don't know. There's just, like, a lot of I do think that, like, having them be tournament prizes makes the most sense, and I hope that, you know, there's talk, I think, among our locals that they're gonna do some sort of like, league where you can report games digitally if you play them at home or whatever, like, which sounds great, but our store is also, like, a lot more accommodating than most, so you know, I feel for people that don't have that infrastructure and backbone in their communities. So
I mean, it's just super awkward because, like, I messaged my store with the like announcement, and I was like, you know, if you do get these, I would be interested. I just don't know how you're going to do it. Right. Cause, like, I mean, I spend a lot of money at my local store. I only buy at my local store. I don't buy a thing online. I will go to my local store and buy my stuff. And I know I'm, like, one of the few Rebel players and, you know, and that goes to that store. And I do a lot when it comes to, like, setting up tournaments and stuff like that. But, like, who says that I'm the one that's supposed to get one of those? Like I'm not, like, I messaged them, like, saying, hey, I would love one of these. I would give you money for one of these.
You and 30 other people, right?
But
Right,
like
exactly.
But like so will everyone else. So like I don't like it's such an awkward position. Like I didn't want to message them, but if I don't message them, then they might not even know about it. And then maybe they don't order from Asmodee Direct. And I don't think they do, if I'm being honest. I think my store orders through another supplier. So now I'm kind of like giving them an incentive to do this one order in order to get these Lukes. As I like slap my mic, I caught it with my reflexes.
He's so furious.
I don't know. I'm just getting my hands are getting involved. Yeah, force reflexes.
Salt reflexes.
But like, it puts me in an awkward position now because I'm the one that informs them.
Well,
it
doesn't even.
I'm
it's
like,
not just
I'm kind of like, I want one. No, right. I mean, it's like, not just me.
But
for sure.
But like, it's the stores that are being put in the most awkward position. Like the stores that are trying to be honest, I think that are in kind of a tight spot. Like, okay, I have 3 of these. Like, what?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with 3 that doesn't involve a tournament? You know, like that makes my that makes more than 3 of my customers happy, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
I mean, they're good.
There's not a lot of answers to that.
I hate exclusives, just to throw that out there. I just hate all of them.
Well,
I just don't. Well, if it's done properly, it's a different story.
I think
right?
GW does it pretty well in that they generally make it available online, like through their web store. Like if you even if you go and I might be misquoting this a little bit, but like a lot of companies are like, okay, if you go to this convention or whatever, and there's this thing that you can buy, you can also like get it on our web store that day, right? And I don't really understand why we're not seeing. I mean, this is just something completely different, out of left field, completely. Like this doesn't even feel like it's for us. It feels like it's for the stores to get them to buy direct from Asmodee.
Yeah,
which it's just like. I don't know. It feels weird. Like, why did you even did they release the article on their main site?
Not that I know of.
Yeah,
I'm not actually clear on where this is from.
Okay,
it doesn't. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Like at the end of the day, this is incentive. This is not incentive for the players, right? This is incentive for the store. The players lose at the end of the day. And there's absolutely no reason for these stores not to just eBay this stuff.
I mean,
because hang on, man. It's like it takes the pressure off the store owner from what Zach's scenario is. Like, do I try to honor my long timers, and then like if I have more than 3 long timers, who am I going to piss off? Which of my customers do I choose to piss off so I can get this model out? So they should just eBay it, because then there's no pressure. It's highest bidder.
Sorry, man, we weren't eligible. And they just scope them off for $600.
Yeah, they can just lie through their teeth and say no, we didn't get it, but then they actually did. You know, it's kind of a lose for the store in that way.
Yeah, to some degree.
Right. The whole incentive structure seems very awkward on this promotion. I really hope that I can get one somehow.
Me too.
I mean, you will be able to. It's called eBay, where you sold all
without paying a bunch of money.
Paying $600.
No,
however the heck it's going to go up to.
No, that is not a true statement, Michael. Because I know this as someone that would sell like one of my kidneys for an Obi-Wan Essence Spiel from last year. That is not something you can find. I'm going to kill you, Kyle.
Maybe I'll be able to trade one of these bad boys.
Yeah, that is not something. Listen, do you know how desperate? Oh my god, I love that sculpt. And you know how desperate I am? I messaged Kyle like, hey, do you know if Gordon did anything with his Obi-Wan? Like, because I know that the World's players got one for participating. And I'm like, hey, do you know, like, does Gordon play clones? I know he likes Rebels. Like, is he willing to sell his Obi-Wan? Because I literally cannot find it anywhere. There was one supposedly on Reddit that I messaged the guy like 10 times, like, hey, I will buy this model at X price. There was no like physical proof that he actually had the model. I was willing to give it a go though. Like, so while I think there'll be more Lukes than there were Obi-Wans, to be fair, it's a more awkward situation because at least the Obi-Wans were purchased at Essence Spiel last year, whereas this Luke thing is just, it's just an awkward.
It's weird and awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, I stand by, like, those should have been available on their website. Like, it was a bad business decision not to do that. Agree.
Like,
I mean, Does anybody other than Kyle have any of either the Vader or the Kenobi?
Nope.
Negative.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't know how many people know about it. Like, they're weird kits, and, like, I understand why they were a limited run. I wish they didn't print them like they did. I mean, they're resin.
Yep,
right? And they're in, like, some weird pieces, and they're in... they don't come on sprues or anything.
It was honestly, so I did an unboxing video for this.
Yeah.
Whenever we got it, like a year ago, and I put it together, I think, on the video, and it's a little weird to assemble. It's not clear on what their manufacturing process was exactly.
Was yours encased in like 3 layers of foam?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you take it off and it's just like it's like a brick of foam, and you like have to like unpeel it so that it's, I don't know. It was really weird.
It's clearly not like a mass produced thing. It's clearly a one-off type situation.
That's where I was headed with that. Like someone packaged this themselves, like as opposed to it coming off a conveyor belt and getting put into a box. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't play clones, so like I'd love to, but I can't get rid of this thing because it's like the only thing we got. So
yeah, well, I mean, if I knew you were willing and able, I would, definitely be like, hey, Kyle, here's like, a few $100, just send that thing up to me. But I know you're not willing and able, so that's
and that's super awkward anyway because you're my friend, and if
I would still pay you the money because that is the going price of it, and maybe I'd even throw in a kidney.
Well, when I scalp a Luke off eBay, we can trade.
Well, I don't want to have that conversation right now. It's just, it's super awkward, especially with friends, because it's like, I'll just give it to you, but anyway.
Listen, no. A good friend will understand that is the going price of the item they will pay you for. Rather than get you a favor and be like,
let's not get into it. He's staying right here. I'm going to pay him.
I know.
He's going on my shelf.
But there's friend codes, and that's one of them, okay?
Yeah. Anyway.
You guys reminded me of this, so I'm literally typing emails while I'm muted to every store owner that I know. Trying to get hold of one of these.
Well, and this is the other thing. Like, they don't do a great job advertising stuff generally, and so if you're listening to this cast and you're concerned about getting your hands on one of these, like, you should probably start with contacting your store. It's kind of awkward, kind of weird. You're certainly not guaranteed anything, but I mean, otherwise there's not going to be any in your area. So yeah.
Anyway, I'm excited to at least have these out in the wild. It's good that, it seems like they had, like, I think your speculation is probably close, and it's good that at least they're getting them out there, period, instead of just not doing anything with them.
I'm glad they're not like burning promotional items like Brendan France would, right?
Well, that's a little different. But...
I know. I just took a quick jab. I love you.
That was more like a love
tournament organizer obligations there. That's a very different situation. But anyway, it's the incentive structure here is a little weird and awkward. But anyway, let's move on to the main topic of today.
Get ready for advanced tactics.
So we got a full-blown Anakin Skywalker preview.
Yeah, we did. And, I think that this is pretty interesting. Full-blown is full-blown, I think. I think we got everything. We got all his command cards. We got all of his flawed cards. We got his flaw card.
There's more than one, I would puke.
Right. I actually think, and we could talk about this a little later, and hopefully by the time you're hearing this cast, I've already put out my Anakin article that is almost done at the time of recording this. I promise, Kyle. And it was impromptu, so don't hate me, people. And I actually think this kit, Anakin and upgrades included, is a much bigger game changer than a lot of things we've seen recently. I think all of the upgrades that were spoiled in this pack are super playable. that's not super common. And I think
it's possible that upgrades are more important than Anakin.
That's where I was headed.
No, I totally agree. But let's get down the road on that.
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about Anakin first. Zach, you're kind of the guy in the Republic that likes to use lightsabers. Do you want us to take us through this, or?
Yeah, this is a multi-layered situation. I'm going to first start off before I get into the card, right? I think Anakin is actually probably one of the most well-designed units in Legion. And what I mean by that is it feels like Anakin Skywalker. And I'm not saying that other units don't, but it feels like, and I'm going to go through this when I start talking about command cards. Anakin Skywalker is one of the most like polarizing figures in all of Star Wars, if not the most. And where you see him from episode 1 to where he is in episode 3 and so on and so forth, there's a character progression, whether you like him in the movies or not. That's more of a dialogue issue that I've pointed out before. But if you watch the Clone Wars TV show, which I think that this is more based on, this feels like the Anakin Skywalker that you watch kind of like grow up before your eyes on the TV show. So let's go to the base, and then when I go over the command cards, I'll kind of explain why I feel that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of interject a little bit there, this whole pack is like, it feels like it's just like drenched in theme and
it's
like,
beautiful.
Like it's clearly very intricately like woven into like how the plot of his story arc and stuff like that. In a way that I think we haven't really seen before, which is cool.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally. Like you see it in the art of the cards, really, right? So like let's go over it, right? So he's Anakin Skywalker. He's a base of 160, which we knew from Gen Con. He has jump, which we knew from Gen Con. We knew that he would have. I'm probably going to butcher this. It's Djem So Mastery. Might just be a silent D and just Djem So. Yeah, probably just Djem So. We knew that he had it, but we didn't know what it did. Now, it is while defending, if you spend a dodge token, you gain surge, block, and if at least one hit or crit result was canceled, the attacker suffers 1 wound. So basically, it's a guaranteed deflect, which we'll get onto more after I go over the card. Flawed, it says add a flaw card to your opponent's hand. Immune Pierce, tempted, you can equip force upgrades of any alignment, which is really cool. Impact 3, Pierce 3, 6 health, 3 for the suppression threshold. Anakin's, it's a well-debated thing here. Anakin's lightsaber, he throws 5 red. He does not surge on either side. Now, the debate, of course, is that Luke Skywalker has Anakin's lightsaber and he throws 6 black. But of course, the discussion would be, well, Anakin's a better saber user, so he has better dice, essentially. So that's the base of Anakin, but there's so much more to him. And let's go over that with his command cards real quick, right? We knew what Hero of the Clone Wars was. It's permanent. Anakin Skywalker gains Exemplar, Reliable 2. And at the end of his activation, if he's not at range 1 to 2 of a friendly unit, he gains 1 suppression token. The suppression factor is also permanent. It is confirmed by Luke Eddy on the Discord. It is assumed by reading the card, but it's confirmed. His 2-pip, which is you underestimate my power. The artwork is amazing. It's Anakin fighting Dooku. It's permanent. Anakin Skywalker gains Surge Crit and Master of the Force 1. At the end of his activation, if he did not perform an attack, he gains 1 suppression token. 1-pip. This is where the fun begins. Now, if you've watched season 7 of Clone Wars, this is where the art is basically from, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks familiar from season 7. It's a permanent. It only issues. So just to reference, these cards only issue Anakin Skywalker on the 2 and the 1-pip, and on the 3-pip, it's Anakin in 2 units, which is notable. That a 2-pip only gives out 1 order. Back to the 1-pip though, it is permanent. Anakin Skywalker gains Outmaneuver and Relentless. At the end of his activation, if he was not the first friendly unit to activate during the current round, he gains 1 suppression token. Now, before we get into the flawed card, those are his command cards. And that's what I mean by telling a story, right? Like all of these cards are basically Anakin gaining keywords. So he costs 160, which is reasonable. And he starts to gain these keywords over the course of the game. But there's so much drawback. He has to be at range of a unit. He has to be the first unit that attacks. He has to be the first unit to activate, or he starts to pile up suppression. So what do you guys think of these command cards and how they're going to function? And then we'll get into the flaw card.
If you include the keywords on his weapon, man's got 12 keywords once it's all played out.
David's over here like it's a GAR unit. Gotta count the keywords.
Yeah. Man's
where's
man's pretty good unit
where's
once you get all those cards out there.
So I think that like first of all, I think it like tells a story, but it also it's super interesting that he kind of like at the beginning of the game, he's kind of like a Padawan. He's basically Luke without charge, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the game, he's like speed 2 jumping Darth Vader, right?
Yeah, he's like cutting fools in half and
like
getting his force powers back.
And like all of his evolution like comes at a cost, right? Like all of him getting better and like becoming a Jedi Knight like comes at a cost of kind of his soul, which I think is
not a Jedi Master.
Not a Jedi Master, clearly. And I think we can talk about it later on, like if we think that Anakin or Kenobi is better, but we can get into that. But Zach, can you just outline your initial question again? Because
No, just what you think of like the command cards and like how it is on the face of things before we get into the real drawback. So, because the cards have drawback, but it's the final key to the puzzle, which we'll get into, is the actual drawback, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think you always, with very little exception, play his 3-pip on turn 1. The drawback is not really a drawback. For the most part, it's definitely the least impactful one. Like keeping Anakin at range of another friendly, like range 2 of another friendly unit, is not hard. Specifically in the beginning stages of the game, where your clone ball is bunched up, you're ready to go, and Reliable 2 and Exemplar are kind of hard to give up. You want them as soon as possible. Reliable specifically, you're just you're making search tokens for free, you're printing money, right? We all know how that goes at this point. So I think you always play that card on turn 1. Maybe you don't if you're playing like a Padme Anakin list and you like divulge her command card and then you play this on 2, because you have to play hers on 1. I could see that if that list is a thing. I'm not sure it is, but
yeah,
I think.
I mean, I like him with Padme, but the command card issues, which we can get into later, is a major problem.
It totally is.
Continue with what you're going.
Yeah. So, and I think his 2-pip and 1-pip, I think, compete a little bit for what they're trying to do. So I actually think his 1-pip is probably like, it feels like you're supposed to go 3, 2, 1. In the order in which you play them, like story-wise. But I actually think that the order is often going to be 3, 1, 2. Just because, I don't know, you often don't need Master of the Force until you're engaged. It's going to depend on like what you kit him out with. But I sort of think that you're playing the 3 on 1 or 2 if you have Padme, and then you're probably not playing his other cards until 4, 5, or 6. It's notable that all of these drawbacks don't matter if you play the card on turn 6, for the most part, because he gets the suppression after he activates. So if you play it on 6, like there's really no drawback, because you never have to check that suppression token. So I do think that you're playing the 2 and the 1 on 4, 5, and 6, just because oftentimes you don't need those keywords until he gets into the thick of it. He's going to be playing pretty defensive for a variety of reasons. The biggest one we haven't gotten into yet. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's interesting. So just thematically, there was a lot of speculation before this preview article about like, well, which version of Anakin are we getting? And the answer is basically all of them.
Right. Like,
right?
Like we're getting the progression as opposed to
right.
like a snapshot in time.
Right. Which I think is cool. But there's a cost to that besides the flaw card. And it is that with the possible exception of his 3-pip, which has some, exemplar and reliable are both somewhat unique keywords for a Saber user. Like the command cards don't really do anything except give him keywords, right? Now they're good keywords, clearly, right? Like Surge Crit, Master of the Force, Outmaneuver, Relentless, Reliable, Exemplar. These are all great keywords, but they're keywords that other Force users have in some combination printed on their unit card, with the exception of Exemplar and Reliable.
Yeah, and he's not like getting a free dodge token or, like...
Well, that's what I mean, is like the command cards don't do anything else except give him the keywords. They're great keywords, but, unlike Luke, he doesn't have command cards that give him free dodge tokens. He doesn't have command cards that give him extra attacks. He doesn't have command cards with other unique effects like, I am a Jedi, where you can negate other attacks, or Full of Surprises, where you get extra defense dice on a roll. Serve, where you can control enemy unit. These are all Commander Luke examples, but even if you look at Vader, right? Like Vader has cards that do things besides grant keywords, pretty much all of them, right? Like look at Vader's Might, right? You can relocate a unit. That's a very unique, useful thing that only that command card can do. So while it's great that he's getting this soup of keywords, he doesn't, not that he doesn't have a command hand. Clearly he has a command hand, but his command cards they don't do unique things besides just make his unit card beefier, if that makes sense.
The unique thing they do is kind of bad.
Well, it's not bad because you're paying 160 points for a Force user that ultimately will have like more keywords than Jedi Luke.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're paying 160 points for like, if you had all these keywords on turn 1, he'd cost like 200 something.
Well,
right?
what I meant was the unique effect on each card really is the suppression. Right, that's the unique effect.
Yeah,
because it's the suppression under different circumstances.
Right,
and I was actually thinking as you were talking, it was sort of like, it's at least he's not as bad as Boba, because he gets to keep these keywords beyond the turn these command cards get played. It's not like he has one weapon this turn and then it goes away. At least you still have that, but he's a commander that kind of transforms into an operative, in a sense, because I think your point is a good one, because these only enhance him. So the rest of your army is kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, guys. I'm busy tapping into the dark side over here and getting beefy.
And just, I was gonna say, just of note, he is a commander, and I forgot to mention this. He has no command slot though.
Oh, interesting.
Right, but it like his 3-pip does actually, between Exemplar and Reliable too, it does help other units. That one does, but his other two definitely don't do anything other than make like Anakin Skywalker the model more raw, give him more raw power, right?
Yep. It doesn't do anything like say Rex, right? Rex is like, I get Inspire, I get Recover, and I also give more face ups to all my buddies. Like,
and I make units shoot farther.
Huh?
I make my dudes shoot farther.
Of course, I'm just talking about, we're not programmed as an example, but you had to bring up clankers. You just had to.
I mean, theoretically,
I wasn't even going to go there, Kyle. That wasn't me.
Theoretically, you could give him like Saber Throw and Offensive Push if you brought him with Rex and Saber Throw at range 3, right? I think.
I mean, yeah. Oh man, I don't know if this is the right time to talk about combos, but I've been like dreaming up some crazy combos. Like, you can do some nuts stuff with Saber Throw, fire support off this guy, especially once you play that 1-pip down, because he'll have Relentless and Jump. So you can do some crazy acrobatic saber tossing,
you totally
and then
can.
fire support it.
I do think this command hand, kind of going back to what you were talking about, Kyle, with like, it all is like permanent effects, but none of it is super splashy. Like, you're not handing out dodge tokens and stuff. Like, the lack of a 1-pip that is kind of like in the Son of Skywalker category, because a lot of 1-pips are, right? It's specifically for Jedi, like Fear, Surprise, Intimidation, Palps, I forget what it's called right now.
And Now You Will Die.
And Now You Will Die, Implacable, Kenobi's hello there. Like they're all super, Grievous's, spin attack. They all have like an extra, you get to swing again, or you get extra damage dice or whatever. And Anakin just kind of sitting there like, I've got my 5 red dice, and like I don't get to go, I don't have cunning, I don't, any of this stuff. I do think that he's lacking a little bit of splash on his one pip. Like if there was any place that I wanted there to be splash, that's where it would be.
It seems like he benefits from getting stuck in early, and then once you accumulate these keywords, like the benefit of those keywords accumulates over several turns, but he doesn't have like a 1-turn bursty wombo combo like some of the other Saber users have.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I will say that this is the first unit that has jump and can take force choke and a speed 2. Which is not trivial.
It's not even close to trivial.
So I mean, I sort of assume that we'll probably see jump and speed 2 on Maul as well. That seems pretty reasonable. But I do think that to some extent, like, he might not need something splashy, because the splashy is built into the tempted keyword, because he can take dark side force powers. He can jump over the wall, slaughter a squad, force choke another one, and then force push the third and be completely safe or whatever. And that's horrifying, because he's got relentless. Like he doesn't even need to
Well, if he's played the 1 pip, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, conceivably, you could play all of these before you get into the thick of it, right? If you can properly manage them.
That's fair.
I actually think his 3 and 2 pip, like, if only one of these triggers, I think is generally pretty easy to manage.
Yeah.
But you got to staple endurance to him, I think.
Yeah. I think you put endurance on him, and you probably need to find a way to get strict orders in the list, whether it's bringing Rex or Padme, or we haven't seen the stats for the generic, but I'm assuming the generic's going to have a command slot. Like, I do think you want to find a way to get strict orders in this list for a lot of reasons, because Anakin's going to have an order probably the whole game. So you can at least mitigate one.
Well, there's one turn he's not going to have an order.
Except the one, except the one turn, which is not a story the Jedi would tell you, which is his flawed
before
card.
We get into this, I wanna circle back around to strict orders, because I actually think it's not as good as you think it is. But we need to understand the next card to understand.
Well, it's not as good. It's not as good when it comes to the flaw card, but I still think it's good for suppression mitigation over the course of a game potentially. It depends on what's going on. So let's read the flaw card and then we'll circle back, because I do have some comments on the 2 pip, but let's just go to the flaw card. You may play this card at the start of the command phase if there is an enemy Anakin Skywalker with at least 1 suppression token. That enemy Anakin Skywalker cannot be issued orders. So that is a card that you hand to your opponent, and they get to play that at the command phase. So basically, they will make sure that they play it on a turn they know that it will trigger. Of course, I mean, if Anakin has a suppression token or multiple, it triggers. Which basically, all those command cards we just read to you, what did they do? They add suppression tokens to Anakin unless he fulfills what is on those cards. Which is specifically why I agree with Mike, where you probably want to go 3-1-2 with your cards. Because at least the 1 pip, you're gonna have if he's not the first friendly unit to activate during this current round, he gains 1 suppression. But the 2 pip acts in a way where he wants to go first anyways, because he's gaining surge crit, he's gaining master of the force, and the timing of it will all work in a situation that works best for Anakin. I will say, circling back on one thing. Force choke being able to be put on Anakin is the only reason why I think I would bring the 2 pip. Otherwise, I would contemplate not bringing the 2 pip on Anakin if I'm being straight up, because I hate the drawback on the 2 pip being that he has to attack that round. There's ways around getting it. And the reason why I say this is because 9 out of 10 times, or maybe 9.5 out of 10 times, I don't see myself taking Force Saber Throw on Anakin, because push and choke, the value you get out of both is almost, and he only has 2 Force slots. Okay. So push and choke. I don't see any other Force card you're taking. I mean, no offense to any of the Force cards. I love Force cards. I'm a Force user all day long. But how do I leave the house and not bring Force push and Force choke on Anakin Skywalker? Try and talk me out of it, because I don't know if you can.
So, go for it, David.
No, I don't think. I don't know. There's two. Well, choke specifically, right? Choke is really cool, right? It's also got a lot of, like, you know, as Mike likes to say, it's toolsy. You can choke a unit leader. You can do all kinds of cool stuff with it, right? We've discussed that a lot. But I feel like if you can use jump to get somewhere with saber throw and deny cover, Anakin has Pierce 3. So in terms of just like auto damage, you know, you're going to get 3 through at range 2 potentially, and just do 3 wounds at range 2 without even using choke or anything like that. So that's my feeling about throw over choke. But I mean, maybe choke is just better because you have more options at that point. It depends on your style, right? Because there's the style of Jedi where you're like zoning for a gun line, which, you know, that's probably what you're going to do. You do it with Obi-Wan, you do it with Anakin, because Anakin is, you know, kind of you know, he's semi-analogous to Luke, right? He has the same stat line essentially, and so he can probably fulfill the same function. And clones have that crazy awesome gun line that they're going to need defending potentially from melee. But at the same time, you know, you can play him aggressive. And if you're playing him aggro, then choke is probably great for you, because you can do your big melee hit and then choke on top of it. So there's you know, multiple angles here that we can approach it at. In terms of not taking the 2-pip though, like, I don't know, man. I still feel like even on red dice, you want that surge. You don't want to be left high and dry.
It's notable that because he has reliable 2, he does kind of have surge already.
Yeah,
it is true.
Like
Although you want to save those for defensive rolls.
Well, of course, you totally do. But like, if you're in the middle of a melee and like you need a surge, you're gonna spend it, right? Like, I agree. I agree that I don't think you should leave the 2-pip at home. Just to be clear, I think it's less about the surge for me though, and way more about Master of the Force.
It's about Master of the Force and getting back a Force power more than it is about the surge. Like, if Master of the Force was not on that card, I probably would not take it.
Let's be real, because it's being able to Force push every turn.
No, I actually think you're going to be refreshing choke a lot more than push.
It's possible.
So here's a hot take. But I actually think that you're both right.
Okay.
I think you're cutting Force push.
Throw choke.
Choke?
Yes. And hear me out on this argument.
No, okay. I get it. I get it.
So, I've played a lot of Operative Vader. Their melee pool is the same, except Anakin's is better because he has Surge to crit. He's either going to wipe a squad, or he's going to wipe a squad down to the unit leader, and then you can just choke it. If you need to get out of melee, most of the time.
It depends on what you're using push for, right?
It is.
Like if you're using it for disengage, then the choke is just as good in that situation.
Absolutely. I also think tenacity is stapled to him. He's got 2 training slots. You should not leave home. It's probably tenacity, endurance. We can talk about endurance later, but you know, his melee attack is really not 5 red; it's 6 most of the time. He's a surge to crit Darth Vader speed 2, a lot of the time with force choke, and I think saber throw or push, and I think you're probably actually taking saber throw, for a variety of reasons, and I think the fact that it allows you to be a little bit more conservative and play the 2-pip early, and like jump and throw something and not trigger the suppression is a really big deal of like keeping you out of the, you know, given to your anger box, right? You know, the penalty box, if you will, you know. That's just my take on it. I do think that like for instance, when I'm playing Operative Vader, I am almost always refreshing Force Choke or push. They like 80% of the time they do the same thing, and it is good to have both. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that there is value in Saber Throw here. Specifically, David, you had pointed out that he can deny cover with jump. I think that's a really big deal. If I could jump on top of a building with Vader and then like Saber Throw stuff, I'd be doing it left, right, and center. It's just
you don't have to commit. You just get up there and do it.
You got heavy cover. You can do it at the end of the turn. Yeah.
Right. Throw opens up the world where he can peekaboo essentially and mitigate the suppression on the card, which is important.
Yeah, and I think the peekaboo portion is really important because, frankly, the way I feel about his flaw card is that if your opponent gets to play this, you've probably lost the game. Like
Anakin dies if your opponent gets to play this card.
Most of the time, unless you can engineer a situation where, like, and I think this is the, a little bit of theory crafting on how you should play him, but you need to sort of engineer a situation where Anakin is threatening the enemy army, but the enemy army can't get to him, and they feel like they need to play this card just to make sure that they don't get bombed. And you stalling with Anakin for a turn isn't a big deal. Like, if you can engineer that situation, and he has a suppression token, I think that you've kind of like successfully navigated the flaw waters. But if you get him stuck in, and this is kind of the case for Force Push, you don't want him to get suppression tokens. You're going to want to be sucking things into melee with him. It's tough. I think the fact that he doesn't have a third Force slot is a huge deal. It's like kind of important. And
the flaw card makes him a very tough piece to play competitively.
You have to like stay bloodlusted. Like, think of it this way, right? This is sort of like I'm going to call this like not attacking every round. Like, if you attack every round, you're like in a bloodlust state, right? And so if you don't stay like in that mode where you're both attacking and not activating first, that's when you're vulnerable to being hit by the flaw. But you have to you have to be able to use the combination of relentless and force push to manipulate the battlefield to where he's not really vulnerable. And I think throw goes a long way with that.
I think well, go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say, if you can prevent him from getting shot, then with endurance, you're probably going to be able to avoid a situation where the flaw card can be played, which is ideal, right?
I don't agree with that. And I actually think Anakin is not competitively viable in any way, shape, or form.
Oh my goodness.
I understand that's a hot take. Let me explain why. If you run into a Force user that has Mind Trick, you're dead in the water. You're literally
no question.
Yeah, no question.
Like,
Mind Trick is like a big problem.
The game is over, pretty much.
Well,
I mean, it's
you're not gonna be able to attack with Anakin
ever.
Yeah. So just the second you go for an enemy unit, he's gonna die the next turn, basically.
The issue is that if you're taking a Force user in your Gar army, like they have to do some damage, right? He's not Kenobi where he can like Guardian other units. He can't save the rest of your list unless you take something we're going to talk about later. Like,
well, that's the thing, right? You look at Anakin's kit and you say to yourself, he needs to be hyper aggressive. And I don't agree with that. I think that you want to play him defensive until he needs to get in. But if you're going to play a Jedi in the Republic that is going to play defensive and then get in, it is Kenobi. So I agree with you, Mike. Like, for the points and what you're spending and how you're spending them, Anakin is a piece. No, Anakin's fun and I'm going to play him. I'm not saying I'm not going to play him. He seems like one of the most like fun units you can play in Legion, at least just on the face of it, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, like, I think he looks awesome to play. But I'm not going to bring him to a tournament.
Competitively speaking, he's going to be so difficult to play. And the reason for that is because a good player is going to find a way to play that flaw card on you. And they're going to play it in a spot that is going to hurt you more than, say, playing a not, quote unquote, not as competitive player, right? And that will see a suppression token on Anakin early on and throw the card down. They'll wait for the opportune moment rather than a moment.
Well,
no, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I think people are going to eventually figure out how to use this flaw card against Anakin. But I think initially for those that aren't Dooku players, because this is basically double the fall, this flaw card is going to get misplayed a lot and essentially wasted.
Right. They'll use, like, it'll be used on like turns 1 and 2 when he has like a suppression. You want to slow him down from getting in. Whereas you can kind of get into a position where you guarantee shots on him, regardless whether that's standbys, not on clones, even just regular units. Like if you can set up something where you can make sure that you're getting suppression or suppressive weapons hitting him on the approach, like you're screwed. Like there's just no ways. I mean, Jedi mind trick, like Mike said, I mean, that just makes me sick thinking about it. Like if you
get hit by a mortar on the way in, like you goofed.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no, of course. But I just still think that in a highly competitive game, he is going to be too hard to navigate to be consistent throughout an entire tournament.
I think that's only true though if you're facing a light side Force user.
Well, I also think I think he's generally speaking, kind of bad against Force users in general.
Yeah, sure.
Just because of the text on his 1-pip. It asks you to go first every turn.
Yeah.
And like in the Force user mirrors, you're often saving like even if you're like in melee with each other. First of all, he doesn't get dodge tokens from any of his cards, which is like, and like you don't want to go first if you're in a duel with another Force user most of the time. Like
most of the time, yeah.
You know, I mean, there are some times you do, but it's generally on like a Son of Skywalker or something, and he doesn't have that, so it's kind of, it's a tough sell to me.
It's awkward.
Yeah. Like, Anakin might kill Dooku in the movies, but that's not how this is going to play out on the table. Dooku's going to win that fight like 99.8% of the time.
Yeah,
because then you have 2 copies of double the fall.
And he takes away your immune pierce, and he's got cunning, and
we get it, Mike. It's basically going to be Attack of the Clones Dooku versus Attack of the Clones Anakin, and Anakin's going to have 2 lightsabers that mean absolute jack because Dooku's just going to slice his arm off. Yeah. And it's all done before it even started.
It's gonna look really pretty, and then Anakin's gonna get chopped up and thrown into a corner.
It's worth noting that 2 of 3 Dooku's command cards on the card art, he is like murdering Anakin. Right?
Yeah. It's kind of a foreshadowing.
It's literally what he's doing in 2 of his 3 command card art.
Shut up, Kyle. All right.
I mean, okay, Zach. I just wanted to say this in response to your point. It's like, yeah, okay. And I mean, this is true for every competitive miniatures game, right? The stuff that is easiest to play and is also the most powerful is what goes, generally speaking. Anakin is not easy to play for this reason. And if it is in fact true that by some research going on that we find a reliable way that Jedi would tell just shuts him down, then yeah, he'll disappear. But that's just, we don't know that yet. You can think of many scenarios that if they do happen, you're screwed. But it's completely up to, it's interactive, right? It's not like my opponent does this and then I have no recourse. I could always play better. I could always position better. I could always build lists where suppression is mitigated. There's play there, it's not a self-fulfilling thing.
Don't get me wrong. I'm going to play 8 activation Obi-Wan Anakin like it's going out of style because I don't care, because I want to put those 2 units on the board next to each other. And I just picture them jumping buildings just side by side. Like like yin and yang. They don't really match together well. Like the command cards don't really work well together, and how Anakin operates is the complete opposite of Obi-Wan, and it's gonna be hard to navigate, but I'm gonna have fun.
So
That's
it's
for sure.
actually interesting. I think that Kenobi, the Anakin Kenobi thing, is maybe the only good way to make Anakin work. Like if he's good, it's probably a niche list that's like all in on getting super aggro with Force users.
Yeah.
And like, I think you put hope on Kenobi.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you probably take push on Kenobi. And
Yep.
like, you might just take 2 copies of push and a.
Yep.
I think you take barrier in that situation on Kenobi, so he can barrier Anakin.
That's possible too. You know, I mean, they can. You know, he can also guardian Anakin, right?
Right.
You know.
So, in my mind, how I see it is, you get yourself in a scenario where Anakin is like double moving, force pushing something around the corner, and then Kenobi comes around and he can do the same thing. And next thing you know, the two of them are just like in the middle of your opponent's army. Now, of course, the issue, and I've written this a couple of times, and I'm sure I've said it on the podcast, Force users are best when they have padded activations. So the issue that you're going to have with the list, they're 8 activations. And that's nothing against them. It's just an 8 activation double Jedi list is going to be awesome and fun, but you're going to be missing 2 to 3 to 4 activations against your opponent, and it's going to hurt. It's going to come down to if you can slash and hack units down real quickly and get yourself like down, like maybe with 1 activation or even in activations. It's going to be a tough sell,
So
but it's going to be fun.
when I say an all-in Force user list, I think you can get it to 10 activations, and you're doing things like slapping electro binoculars on phase 1s and not taking heavy weapons and stuff like.
Yep.
And like both of these characters are going to be like, give me the dodge tokens, yo.
Yep.
Right?
Portal
Like,
scanner.
right. Like,
Yep.
and yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, if that list works, it looks very differently than, I think, very different to traditional lists. It's going to be a bunch of naked phase 1s that are like, and frankly, naked phase 1s that share aim tokens really aren't that bad.
Yeah, they're not terrible when it comes right down to it.
Yeah, and but like, I think you can get 10 activations going. I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I haven't slapped any Force U upgrades on them, but Anakin, Obi-Wan, 6 phase 1s and 2 arc strike teams is 751.
Oh, I'm in. I'm in.
It's a cool image too.
Whatever.
Right?
I don't care. Like, there's a lot of meat there, don't mind you. Like, those naked phase 1s, like, sure, there's only 4 per unit, but that's a lot of wounds when it comes, when it comes to thinking about it now. I still think it's very hard to navigate a list with Jedi that have no heavy weapons backing them up. I've written this in my last Obi-Wan article, and I'm saying it again here. The reason why Force users work in this game is because you can back them up with firepower, and you're basically playing a sleight of hand game where they have to pay attention to your guns and they don't pay attention to your Jedi. If your opponent knows that you're playing 2 Jedi that are just going to be thrown at them, they will figure out a way to deal with it. Now, I'm not saying it won't work. It will. It will probably throw a lot of people for a loop, but it's going to be unreliable. But I don't care. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you're able to like stick the landing on the dive, like, you've pretty much won the game.
Oh, it's over. Like, it's
Yeah.
like you can essentially like get yourself in a position where Anakin, right? And this is all theory crafts because I'm just thinking to myself. You can get yourself in a position where Anakin is in melee with something that he's like hacked, and since he has Exemplar, he can take a standby who maybe Obi-Wan's in a full unit, right? And instead of Anakin like slashing the one dude, you do some shenanigans where Obi-Wan's getting a token over from Anakin, right? Or just kind of like trying to figure out a way where they're playing like this Mickey Mouse put together teamwork situation, right? I'm not saying it's any good, as Mike. I know you kind of gave me the.
No, I was thinking about it in my head, and it does work. And
you're
actually,
going to have to think about those things.
Standbys, once you're locked in melee, are pretty potent, specifically on if you can share them with Force users.
Very good.
You know, I sort of wish that it went both ways. I think it would be a little bit more reliable in that capacity. But yeah, no, I agree.
Like, let's say you haven't played in theory, you haven't played his 2-pip. And Anakin's in there somehow, right? And he's only got like 2 guys in melee with him. But he's at range of all sorts of things, right? And this is all if your opponents clump together, right? Essentially, he can force push something closer to Obi-Wan or himself. He can, and then also force choke a heavy weapon off of a squad, right? Then he can refresh and take a standby token to feed Obi-Wan, right? Like, there's just in that way he's not getting the suppression from not having the 2. Like, there's just so many different ways you could do it. Now we're off on a tangent, Mike.
Yeah, and you want to standby before the force push, because then Obi-Wan could immediately spend the standby off of Anakin's force push.
Oh, there you go. So you standby, force push, recover, you choke something, Obi-Wan fires off. There's a whole. Now the issue, of course, is order control, and one of your Jedi is going to be screwed at points. It's fine.
Well, so
it's
that's
whatever.
That's what Seize the Initiative is for.
We haven't gotten to that yet. This card actually makes this list work.
I think we should segue to the upgrades, but I want to circle back to Not a Story Jedi Would Tell real quick, because I think there's one thing we didn't really hit hard enough, and that's like, I've sort of seen some discussion about, like, oh, if this gets played, that's not even that bad. You just fish Anakin from the back, you're fine. Maybe that's true in like casual games, but if you're playing against someone that plays this card at the right time, if you're fishing Anakin from the bag, unless you get really lucky, like when this card gets played, Anakin dies.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Let's be crystal clear about that.
Yeah, I've had this discussion in like guard chat on Discord several times now. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna like do this thing so that there's only 4 tokens in our bag instead of 6," and I'm like, "No, I don't think you understand." like if 75% of the time when you go into your bag to pull out Anakin, you don't get it, he dies, right? Like, and that fail rate is way too high. Yeah, it's just like if you get Luke Cook and he plays this against you, like, your Anakin should be dead, right? Like, that he will have correctly identified when to play this card to nail you to the wall. Like, it's
make improvised orders great again. Here we go.
But even that's improvised orders is you can't fish with improvised orders. Improvised orders is great for throwing back tokens that you want to keep till the end of the turn, not for fishing for a token you want to go proactively. So.
Yeah, you're paying 10 points for the opposite of what that card wants to do. It's not going to feel good, but I mean, whatever. Play the slots, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to get that out there because I had seen some discussion where people are like, yeah, sure, let your opponent play with it, play this card, fine, whatever. This isn't a flaw. Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's talk about these upgrade cards, because these upgrade cards are my favorite part of this this expansion. Let's do offensive defensive stance first, because I think that's probably, even though it's interesting, probably the least interesting of these 3.
It's probably I don't know if it's the least interesting, but it's the least good, I think.
That's what I mean.
When you read the card, before you say that, I'm going to preface it. I think it's only good on operative Luke, but go ahead, Kyle. What do you got?
I don't agree with that at all, but let's continue.
Ooh, I think it's great. I think it's potentially good on Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I think Kenobi is probably the best target for it.
Okay, let's talk about what this does first. So basically, it has 2 sides. I'm not going to read all the card text because this is pretty easy to TLDR. It has 2 sides. You can, depending on which side you have flipped, you can either get 2 aims when you take the aim action, or get 2 dodges when you take the dodge action. But if you have like the dodge side flipped, then you can't take aim actions, and vice versa. So,
well, it's not even that. You can't spend the tokens. It's not aim action. You can't spend aim or dodge tokens.
If you somehow get them some other way, like say from Hello There or something, you can't actually spend it. So yeah, even more restrictive. But yeah, it's. I think what makes this card limiting is that you have to actually like physically take the action to double up on the token.
Yeah, it doesn't like trigger off like force reflexes or anything, right?
Right.
Which
it would be kind of silly if it was like when you gain a dodge token, gain 2 dodge tokens, because there are a ton of cards and stuff that give you free tokens.
No doubt. I mean, it would be better than it is.
Stapled to operative Luke.
Oh, no question.
What was that?
Operative Luke. It was stapled to operative Luke. Like, could you imagine that on operative Luke?
That'd be
full
disgusting.
surprises.
Full of surprises gives 2 dodges.
Oh,
Miles
yeah.
of Force gives
Sorry,
2 dodges.
You're saying if it was whenever you got a dodge token.
Yeah, if instead of perform a dodge action would be when you would gain a dodge token, that would make it insane.
Yeah, I don't actually think that this is that good on operative Luke.
No, we're saying it is if the text was different.
Well, Zach I think said earlier.
I think it's fine on him.
You said he was the best candidate for it.
Really?
Well,
I want to hear why you think it's good.
Yeah, me too.
all right. Well, what if the counter to all of this is that it's because it's not good on any other Force users for a lot of reasons. Now you say Obi-Wan. I understand why you think it's good on Obi-Wan. The issue is this is a training upgrade. Obi-Wan is already fighting for things in his training slot.
What is he fighting for other than tenacity?
Situational awareness or tenacity, I think, are fine on Obi-Wan. And both.
I think this is way better than both of those on Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know if I agree.
Okay.
This literally saves a clone body.
You're gonna hate me for saying this too. This card is also good on Anakin for the sole reason that dodges become damage.
Well,
if you get shot.
I think Anakin has a little bit. I agree with you. I think this has a place on both Republic commanders, but I actually think the reason it's good on Anakin is because of Exemplar. He can kind of do like a pseudo Kenobi with this, in that like when you don't need him, like, or don't want to dive with him, you can just have him sit there and take dodge tokens.
Yeah, you can just chill and be like, "Hey guys, 2 dodges, 2 wounds that you're not taking."
Yeah, he sits there and dodge standbys for your phase 2s, and it's like dodge, or he double aims for your phase 2s or whatever.
Right. There's another good reason to take him as Exemplar. Can share standby.
It just, there's less opportunity cost lost on Anakin specifically, for like not doing anything on his turn. Like if in early turns, like turns 1 through 3, like with Commander Luke or Operative Luke, a lot of times you spend him like he's like just zoning, and that's really all he's doing. Like Anakin can actually be like, hey, here's a standby token, like go have fun, right? Like, here's some aims, here's some dodges, like go kill things at like range 3 or whatever. And I actually think that's pretty good, and I think this card, it goes a long way in potentially making that style of Anakin like a little better.
And I think in general, one tactic with Anakin, regardless of whether you have this or not, that's important that you touched on, is taking standby actions on those early turns, because like generally speaking, it seems weird that you'd want to transfer an action from a saber wielder to like a phase 2 or something like that. But on those early turns, your saber users are mostly just double moving anyway. So if your choice is move, or move standby, where that standby translates to an attack from a phase 2, then in that particular situation, which is going to be on the first handful of turns, that standby action on Anakin is better than a second move.
Well, I mean, it's almost like, oh god, here I go again. Basically Anakin has like pulling the strings.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like he can be really like a pseudo Palpatine like the first few turns, and then he gets to dive and do his thing, right?
Right. But then it's like what's that meme with the astronauts? It was pulling the strings the whole time. Yeah, because it's like that's standby sharing for clones. Well, effectively.
And there's a major difference here. He's not pulling the strings on a strike team.
No.
Or a shore unit. He's pulling the strings on a full arc or a phase 2, right? Like,
yeah, one of the best targets possible.
Yeah, and clearly it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's a conditional pull the strings, and that it needs to be triggered. But it's really hard to shoot a standby off a single model, generally speaking. Like Anakin, because he has jump, should be able to hide behind a wall with standby token pretty easily, right?
It's really hard to shoot that standby off, and it's also really easy when the arcs have Overwatch. So
yeah, I mean, it's certainly
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's hard for it to be good. I'm just saying it's not like Pull the Strings where you just get the action. Right?
No. It has to be it has to be granted to you by your opponent, which makes it softer. But at the same time, it's like, well, if your choices are walk into my standby or lose the game anyway, then you're just screwed. You know.
Yeah, it's an interesting secondary way to use him.
For sure. As a standby battery.
Yep.
And that's also like one of the cool things, right? Because it's like Obi-Wan's not a clone trooper. Well, Anakin is half of one.
Yeah, I mean he shares tokens. It's sort of in the wrong direction, I think.
Yeah.
Clearly it would be busted if you could share them in the other direction, right?
Clearly you need to take Anakin and Padme.
I mean, I think that there is some list somewhere out there that runs Kenobi, Anakin, Padme, and all three, or Anakin and Obi-Wan take Overwatch.
You never know.
I mean, I don't know how good it is, but it's interesting to talk about.
It sounds like it would be hilarious at a
Zach,
minimum.
can you run this list for science, please?
No, it's making me nauseous just thinking about it. I mean, I can't even formulate a sentence following up on that. So I don't know if I can logically do that to myself.
I have a lot of time to think about these things.
Yeah, I mean,
Quarantine, man. you get to thinking.
I mean,
dangerous.
As we're talking about the upgrades, talking about Anakin and Padme, I do think Anakin and Padme have a ton of synergy, as it's brought up, just because it's a free way to get him dodges as opposed to taking this card that costs him an action, right? As in she takes a dodge and does quick thinking and she's at range of him to pull that off and stuff like that. But it's tough to kind of vector. I mean, the main drawback to obviously the Anakin taking defensive stance is that it's a training slot that he's fighting for. Right? I mean, ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main issue, and this is more of an Anakin issue than an offensive defensive stance issue, I think, is that once he's stuck in there, he doesn't really want to be taking dodge or aim actions. You know,
right?
Like Jedi don't really stop and take the dodge action most of the time. They're getting it from their cards often, and if they don't, they just kind of go without it unless you're Dooku with reflexes or something. And so, I mean, I do think you're only taking this if you're going to play a more defensive oriented Anakin. When we're talking,
and then you
about
might as well
Anakin
just run Obi-Wan,
right? And then I think you just run Kenobi.
Yeah, you run Kenobi with this and the other card in the deck.
Yeah, so let's talk about this new Force upgrade. Force Barrier.
What would you say?
First of all, I dig the art on this card. Is that Dr. Afra in?
It is,
yeah.
In fact, Dr. Afra.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna preface this. This card's ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good. It's not Force Push.
Just in case Obi-Wan Guardian pissed you off, here's Force Barrier.
Yeah. So let's talk about what it does. I'm with Mike on this one, by the way. It's good. It's a force power. Force powers are all good. Well, another friendly trooper unit at range 1 is defending against a ranged attack. During the modify attack dice step, cancel either one critical result or up to 2 hit results. 10 points, force slot, exhaust.
And you can master the forces back every time.
Master of the Force is really the key here.
My gosh.
You're not putting this on Commander Luke. Let's be real.
I think this is basically untakeable on the units that don't have Master of the Force.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is just Commander Luke, I think, right?
Yes.
Look at that. I'm trying to think
60
here.
units that don't have Master of the Force, but they can't take the
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah.
of the units with Force slots, I think it's basically just Commander Luke.
Right. It's a really good card. I mean, I know you guys saying it's just it's good and not crazy good. I think it's crazy good. But it's fine in the fact that it's going to open up a lot of list building, I think, and it's going to bring back, I don't want to say bring back, but this is really good on Palpatine, right? And sure, Luke Cook won with Palpatine and LVO, right? I have not seen Palpatine since Invader started, we'll call it. in a competitive scene. And that's probably a lot to do with clones and how they operate. And I'm not trying to be salty. I'm just saying that it is something that, quote unquote, because it's going to sound like a pun, but I'm not trying to be funny, but kind of phased Palpatine out a little bit.
Clones have phased a lot of things out. It's just people are still trying to fight it.
Yeah, and again, I'm not actually trying to be salty, but I'm just trying to say like it is a fact of like it is a matter of fact that it's a thing. Force barrier kind of opens that up a little bit.
Yeah, before this, Palpatine is essentially a strong counter meta pick if the meta is Tauntauns, which it was for LVO and which it was for Nova Open, which are the two major events recently that Palpatine has won, right? Those were both Tauntaun metas, and Palpatine is good in those situations. But I think this is interesting in that it is the first like exhaustible force power that you can actually use just when you're in the middle of your own dudes.
Yeah,
basically.
I sure wish force reflexes work this way.
Yeah, the timing is awesome.
Right, so
the
the timing
great.
is reactive, which is great. But it's also on another unit, which is also great because it gives force users like Palpatine and Dooku, who tend to be defensive. They tend to be with the bulk of their army for most of the game. It gives them something to do during those early turns besides just like double move towards the important parts of the table, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sold that it's good on Dooku.
I think it's amazing on Dooku. There's two reasons I think it's amazing on Dooku. Then I want to hear your counterpoints.
Saving a B1 or 2 is not super exciting to me. So I want to touch on one thing that is sort of counterintuitive about this card, and people actually kind of don't understand about shields to some degree. When you're force barriering or like using a droid deck as shield, you don't save a wound every time you flip the shield token, or if you bury your 2 hits, you didn't save 2 wounds. It prevents you from rolling an armor save, right? And so, for instance, on clones, force barrier oftentimes nets you less than it's possible. In fact, it's likely that you would have saved them anyways, right? Unless Pierce is involved, and then it's a little different, right?
Right. I was gonna say it's like, well, at least once a turn, the sniper that shot that phase 2 is not getting a wound in.
And I think that's where force barrier really shines, is that it's like, hey, snipers, one of you don't get to do a thing today, and I actually think that Galactic Civil War snipers have been kind of on the downward trend lately.
Phased out.
Surely.
Phased out by, phase 2s. And actually ARC troopers. But, it's often that you only hit with 1 or 2 Civil War strike teams a turn anyways, because they're kind of unreliable in contrast to their cousins. And now you're hitting 1 less than once or twice a turn, and you're going to be wishing you brought a bigger die pool. So I think that's where it's at its best, is when you're countering strike teams. It's still really good against ARC troopers, right? Canceling a crit on an ARC trooper is, unless they get the double crit, which is more common than we'd like probably, but is still pretty unlikely unless they spent 6 aim tokens on it or something, right? So I don't know. It's very good. I don't think it's good on Dooku because you're saving B1s. I don't know. If they're shooting your BX droids,
well, okay,
it's great.
Let me talk about why it's good on Dooku, or why I think it's good on Dooku. There's 2 reasons. The first is probably the most important one, and it's that he has Master of the Force 2, and he has 3 Force slots.
Right.
So he can take push and choke and barrier. He doesn't have to choose, right? And usually that third force, like push and choker, you're basically stapling to him. But that third force slot is usually saber throw or force reflexes. Personally, as someone that runs Dooku a lot, I consider force reflexes like a luxury because the timing is not great, except on your fear, surprise, intimidation turn. That's like the only turn I think that I would really want force reflexes. And saber throw is also not great on every turn except for potentially your fear, surprise, intimidation turn. But even then, it's almost like an option B, because ideally you're using fear, surprise, intimidation to like close the distance between him and your opponent's army and do the melee ranged attack combo. Whereas the ranged nuke, while great for killing one thing, often you're using that in like a peekaboo type situation, and then Dooku's not in a position to continue wrecking things on consecutive turns. So I consider saber throw and reflex as well good to be kind of situational on Dooku. Whereas force superior, you're going to use every single turn on Dooku. And even if you're just using it to save B1s, like as someone that plays a lot of droids, B1s are actually valuable. Like you need B1s, and your opponent needs to kill B1s. And you made a good point about how force barrier doesn't actually prevent wounds, it prevents armor saves. Well, B1s have garbage armor saves. So in the case of B1s, you're actually preventing wounds. Like this card gets better the worse the save is that you're using it on.
That's true. It is best used on like a Wookiee or B1. I don't know. I have a hard time taking a 10-point upgrade that like focuses on these throwaway bodies. I don't know.
I mean, counterpoint, if you're playing Dooku next to Grievous or eventually Maul, those 10 points are going a long way.
Well, right. And that's kind of
fantastic.
And that's kind of the third thing, right? Is like, okay, maybe often you're using this to save B1s, but you can also use it to save BX droids. You can use it to save B2s. You can use it to save Grievous or Maul, potentially, or Cad Bane, right? Like, so if you're using it on B1s, it's fine. To me, the opportunity cost is very low because I view saber throw and I view that third force slot right now as like a luxury.
That's fair.
And you're only paying 5 more points than over saber throw, and it's the same cost as force reflexes. So to me, that's like a hard swap with almost no downside. But then beyond that, you're often using it on something that's not B1s. And if you're doing that, it's just straight value town, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I just like saving clones is sweet justice.
Sure, I'm not saying it's as good as saving a phase 2 from a sniper shot. Clearly, it's not.
I mean, but I'm digging this card on Operative Luke because of the fact that you can sort of, when there's you get to do it during modify attack dice. You get to know whether this is the attack you want to use it on. Before it starts.
I mean, like if you got a Rebel Trooper unit in heavy cover with a dodge token from Leia,
5 hit cancellations.
You're in cover 5 basically.
Yeah,
or
so it's
you're
really
in
good for you.
Or you're in like cover 3 and you have a like outmaneuver that you didn't have to really pay for.
There's some good stuff there. Pistol Cassian comes to mind. Like he's got kind of a garbage save, and Force Barrier is helpful.
Yep.
Yeah,
Any of those white saberable heroes could benefit from this card.
Maybe this is how you get Han in there. I don't think so, but
well, I mean, I'm looking forward to trying it. I mean, if you really want to be a cheese ball, you could say, "Here's 2 less wounds R2 has to take every turn."
I actually think that's not the worst use of this card.
No, right? I mean, he's going to be range 1 of you because he's calculating on you. So if he calculates on you, you barrier on him. It's like a symbiont circle or whatever the hell.
Yeah, it's like, sure, shoot R2.
No. Would he still get the suppression? That's another question.
Yeah, because it cancels the results.
It just cancels the results. So he still got shot, but it cancels the results. So now he's getting suppression token and didn't have to roll dice.
Correct.
So speaking of the rolling of the dice thing, and Mike, you've mentioned it, and it comes up when you discuss the card. A couple things of note. I like this card a lot because it's going to play how I play Legion. It's going to help me play defensive. I play Obi-Wan, so I mean, I get it, right? 2, and this I'm going to start with all the good stuff. It's probably going to phase strike teams out more in terms of the Galactic Civil War strike teams. Like I think ISF and Mandalorians kind of already got that like sail moving. I'm not saying that they're going to be completely phased out. I still think long range Pierce guns are really good, and you're going to need them eventually. So, but you're going from a 3 of to like a 2 of and maybe a 1 of. Well, arcs are a whole different story, so we're not even going to discuss that.
I mean, it's worth noting that if you've only got one strike team, barrier pretty much takes them away from you, right? Like
right. If you're going up against a list that has barrier, you just take your strike team away, basically. Yeah. But I understand that, but it's still a necessary evil, I think, in a lot of lists. And I say evil, but like going from 3 strikes to 1 strike is good for the game. BX droids, you don't even need them in droid lists. That's the thing, right? So like in terms of strike teams, you're probably going to see the number go down if force barrier starts getting played a lot, which I think it's going to. I think it's going to give the game an injection of force users potentially. It changes how force users get played quite a bit. Or not how they get played, but how they function with the army. It kind of changes it a little bit because not every unit had to be defensive, and now they can be defensive for free, basically, right? My issue with the card is that it takes away rolling dice, and it creates the same problem that clones have right now. And again, I'm not being salty. I'm just bringing up a matter of fact up, is that when you play against a clone list that is doing the standby castle, the game now turns into like an uninteractive game, right? Force barrier is an uninteractive card. It takes away rolling dice. So while it's really good, and I think it will bring Jedi into the game or force users into the game, I think that's good for the game. I can see this card being frustrating is all I'm trying to get at, because it's taking away rolling dice, and that's what this game's about, right?
I agree with you to some extent there. I think it's pretty limited in that effect. Like, it's not like you're throwing a 10-hit Z6 pool that was like always going to be 10 hits into your Rebel Trooper squad, right? You're like, it's basically like, you know, I'm guarding. It's super similar to Kenobi's Soresu mastery, and he just uses it twice with 2 dodge tokens, right? In 2 separate instances. It's basically the same thing. And like Soresu's good, but like it has not proved to be broken because you can't roll die. You've made it so that you don't roll defense dice. And this, I think, is to some degree even more limited in scope, in that like it is timing sensitive, in that if it's down, your opponent has to activate their force user to bring it back up. And once you bring it down, like, you know it's down, right? Whereas with Kenobi, you know, he's like, hey, I got 10 dodge tokens, right? Like, and I don't know. If this was something that was that did it far more frequently, I would be way more concerned about it. But this is like sort of like a super limited marksman for defense is kind of how I see this, you know? And, you know, marksman also an ability that lets you not roll dice, basically, to some degree. I think in the limited capacity on Iden and Cassian, we haven't really seen with ISF yet what that looks like. People are talking about tactical strike and how good it is. I'm not completely sold on it. But like that, it's fine on their snipers. It's not broken. But I think what we see from the like not having to roll dice thing is when you can roll a huge pool of dice and fix all of them, that's where the problems start happening. You know, I mean, if 6 hits come in and you're in cover 2 and then you barrier 2 more, like, you still have to roll defense dice. I don't know.
Yeah, and it helps, I think, too, that this is gated behind expensive units, right? Like, this is good on. We already kind of went over this, right? But I think this is good on. It's certainly good on Palpatine and Obi-Wan. It's probably good on Dooku, and it's probably good on Jedi Luke. All of those units are 200 points except for Obi-Wan, who is 175. So, like,
yeah, I actually think
you're not really gonna see it that often.
Sort of. I think the issue that if I have an issue with it, it's that it's good on the good Force users and really bad on the bad Force users. Like the Force users that need help are not really getting anything out of this card. Like, don't get me wrong, if standby sharing wasn't a thing, I think Kenobi would be fine, right? And I think he'd probably be actively good. But it is, so that's not the world we live in. But I think like Dooku and Palp like don't really need the help. In my opinion, I mean Palp maybe, but like he's been good historically. I'm not sure that you're taking this on Operative Luke. Operative Luke tends to be kind of independent.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have to play him a little bit more defensively than I see a lot of Luke players playing him. It is
Range 1 is short.
Yeah, range
it's
1
short.
is super
It's short,
short.
and it's a lot of times like Operative Luke's like playing a lot of ping pong like over the battlefield, and it's kind of like hard to reliably know he's going to be in one spot. So I mean maybe it's good there, but it's definitely, I mean I guess you could put it on Commander Vader because he's slow and his army can keep up, but his 4 slots are already so competitive. It's like I don't know. He really needs to be chopping things up in melee, and Operative Vader too. So I don't know. I think this makes the good Force users better, and the ones that aren't so good kind of like, man, I wish I had a card that was built for me. But.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it's just nice that it gives like the defensive Force users something to do that's actually defensive besides just being in the general vicinity of their army.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Dooku players and Palpatine players should be, and Kenobi players should be like, woohoo! This is
I
it.
was very excited because I'm 2 of those 3 things.
You can make like a really like degenerate Kenobi build that has like defensive stance, force barrier, reflexes, and just go ridiculous on the defensive end, and
just go full mitigation.
And like it's just you mitigate like like the knowledge and defense turn with force barrier, it just seems silly.
Yeah, your opponent's not killing anything on that turn.
Because you're usually when you're playing knowledge and defense, it's timing neutral when you activate Kenobi. I sometimes have put Kenobi in the bag to put orders on 2 clone units because it's 2 units, I believe, right? If I'm not 2 trooper units, it doesn't say Kenobi on it. So like, then when you pull Kenobi, you refresh or you master the force barrier, and you have all these pile of dodges, and you're just deflect. You're just basically just whatever's coming in is just not happening. But yeah, I mean, I do get what you're saying though, Mike. It does help the better force users rather than some others. But I mean, I still think it's a good card to inject in, and I think it could be like, it could give life to other units that, like, again, I know we see Palp a lot. I know we see Dooku a lot, but I haven't seen Palp a lot, and I would like to see Palp on the table more.
Yeah, totally.
I
don't know if it was on the cast or like when we were kind of shooting in like our private Discord or whatever, but David, was it you that was talking about situational on phase 2s?
I was, in fact.
So it occurs to me that I'm gonna eat a little bit of crow. I still don't think it's super good, but like a kitted Kenobi with AT barrier, reflexes, and offensive defensive stance to basically guardian all the hits and like outmaneuver on all of the clones so that they can share outmaneuver dodge tokens to take care of the crits might actually be kind of good.
It just sounds disgusting.
It does sound disgusting.
The way you just worded it just made me sick. So.
I mean, high velocity shuts you down, but then high
force
velocity
barrier
attacks.
Force
Well,
barrier takes care of the high velocity shots, right?
Right, barrier takes care of high velocity, and if it's high velocity off a tank, it doesn't pierce anyway. So
Yeah.
you know.
So I mean, like, I don't know. That sort of just like went through the revolving door of my mind as Zach was talking about that, and I was like, that's a situation where like, because I don't think situational is very good unless you're like picking the final crit out of the pool. Like if there's a hit left in the pool that you could have dodged, situational didn't do you anything.
Yeah,
but if you could pull out of the hits out of the pool with Kenobi, then I think it gets a lot better.
Right, if you pull the hits out and then share the dodges for the crits, well then it's like what's left? Nothing. It's like, oh, you shoot me and did no damage to me. Fantastic. Now I'm going to shoot back at you with my aim stack, and we're all going to have a lot of fun. Well, at least I am. You're going to go home and cry.
Yeah.
That sounds like a list I would enjoy playing.
Because you like tearing a piece of someone's soul out and putting it in your pocket on the way out the door.
I was going to say because it's defensive, but
No,
I
he was
swear to God,
me, not Kyle.
Okay.
I swear, if Kyle somehow pulls out this clone army somewhere and puts that Kenobi that he said he's never going to use on the table, and he's got this ridiculous situational awareness phase 2 list, I'm going to walk over to Kyle's table. Now, this is eventually down the road, mind you. I'm going to walk over to his table. I'm going to gently take off his Kenobi models so it doesn't break, but I'm not going to care about the rest of them. I'm just going to flip the table.
Right, like save the Obi-Wan, save the S and Obi-Wan. The rest of it, just dumpster. Just get it out of here.
But I'm going to be like, look, I just wanted a reason to put my painted Obi-Wan on the table. I mean, I had to get all these phase 2s to go along with my Obi-Wan. Like,
the force barrier was the tipping point.
2s? Do you own phase 2s?
No. I own 0 Gar models except for that one.
I was going to say, I was like, this is
I could probably sell him and buy an entire Gar army.
phase 2 models on me? Because I only have 2 boxes. This is a problem.
No.
Yeah, I have 0 boxes, buddy. Like, that's why I'm not running clones.
So we're 2 hours into this cast. We still have one more upgrade to talk about.
Oh man, we should save it.
No. Let's do this. This is the most important one.
This one's very important.
This is the most universally useful one, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So seize the initiative. Commander or operative only, so this is limited to characters, basically. During the issue order step of the command phase, issue an order to yourself. Training slot, 5 points, discard.
Yeah. So
basically, it's a training slot HQ uplink that discards.
That's cheaper. But specifically, it goes on units that can't take HQ uplink other than Iden.
And Cad Bane also has a comm slot, but most people
I guess
forget
K2,
that.
K2 and R2
K2.
probably.
Yeah.
So a couple things on this. I saw some confusion on the Discord that this card allowed you to like supersede Anakin's flaw card.
No.
That is not how it works. You cannot be issued orders at all. It doesn't preface where they come from. So this does not like save you from his flaw, although that would be, a great way to get around it. So yeah, this card is it allows you to take away a lot of the unpredictability of playing 1-pips specifically in lists with multiple characters, which is really important. There's some really cool stuff you can do with it, like you can put it on Operative Vader and take Krennic, and now Vader has Cunning, because you can just pop C's on Krennic's 1-pip turn. I suppose you could. I mean, CIS kind of already can do that with Dooku and Cad Bane because of how their bag works out, so it's a little bit less good. But like if you take like Bosk and Boba, you can put C's on both of them, and whoever's 1-pip turn it is, or even it doesn't even have to be. They're super order hungry, so like just having C's allows you some flexibility to pop, basically have orders on both on a specific turn because you only have orders on one. Most heroes in the game at this point have a training slot. This seems like pretty much an auto include on any hero that has a training slot that the list has multiple characters in if you have the points.
I wish I had this upgrade for LVO 2020 because this would have been absolutely killer if I could place on a Skywalker and then put an order on Sabine. simultaneoly.
Right, like
That was a major fault of the list.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, like you get all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know, I can, you know, if you got operative Luke, you were playing Commander Luke though, I think.
I was,
if
yeah.
I recall. So yeah, I mean, like you can play SOS, but like if you had operative Luke and Sabine, like you could have it on both of them.
Yeah, you
right?
could take C's on both and just be like, training's, you know, kind of a mess a lot in these two, so you just get an extra order.
I mean, notably, it would not have saved your strike teams.
No, it would not.
Pow, 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 pow.
Thanks, man. My nuts needed that extra punch.
But notably, in my Vader Bosk list, like I often leave the training slots like empty on Bosk. Like this would actually be pretty good to like, you know, be like, okay, I'm gonna play Vader's 1-pip now, because I'm not even sure. I don't generally play. I think I was playing at the time. I was playing Bosk's 1-pip because Operative Vader wasn't out yet. But like nowadays, I would just take both of Vader's 1-pips because Bosk's 1-pip is kind of meh. Because if he gets that close, he's often dead.
It's situationally amazing.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
Yeah.
Whereas both of Vader's 1-pips are incredibly important to how he operates.
I think this is like a shot in the arm for a double bounty list. I know Boba is a little high end points wise right now, but there's like a way you can probably like get yourself in a position to run Iden double bounty and put relay on Iden and take Iden's 1-pip, relay the order to Bosk or, you know, Boba, and then C's on the other one. Or maybe you take C's on both. And then you have orders on Iden, Bosk, and Boba on Iden's 1-pip, because her 1-pip you know you probably want to take, right? And like I mean this is all theory craft. I don't play Imperials, but like the thought of it sounds really cool. I think Bosk and Iden are, you know, situated somewhat well in the meta. Boba is still a little expensive, but the thing about Boba is that like he's still a really good tool. Like he's still a speed 3, you know, Mandalorian. You know, I think you just have to play Boba a little bit differently than you did in the early meta. That's all. But I do think that like when I first saw this card, my immediate thought was like you said the bounty hunters, but my immediate thought was double bounty. Because double bounty is like, all right, bounty is like a tough keyword. Like it seems like good on the face of things, and sometimes it's not that good because of, you know, how the game boils down. But when you have 2 units that can kind of take home that extra VP or 2, it changes so much of how the game gets played. So I was excited to see that, because as much as I hate playing against double bounty because it's a tough list when the person running it knows what they're doing, like it's a tough list to play against. It's still exciting to see, because I think you're going to see a fresh new wave of it potentially.
And that's always been kind of my beef with double bounty, is that, yeah, you're taking 2 bounty hunters and they're both individually amazing, but by definition, they're also extremely timing sensitive and they can't give each other orders. So this is kind of a great way to just get around that primary weakness of a double bounty list.
Yeah, I do think that like this upgrade, at least right now, doesn't really say Republic or Separatists to me. It says Rebels or Imperials. I think there's probably, just because of the fact that Imperial characters tend to be a little bit more order hungry than Rebel characters, I think it's a little bit better there, just generically. You know, Vader's pretty order hungry, Iden's pretty order hungry, you know, both Boba and Bosk are pretty order hungry. But like a lot of the Rebel operatives hand out orders to like multiple units, right?
I think it says Republic to me because it completes Rex's trifecta. He's got We're Not Programmed, which is insane. He's got Take That Clankers, which is insane. He has Call Me Captain, which would have been situational, except now you can get orders on the hero that he's supporting in melee. So let's say you have an Anakin with Tenacity plus Call Me Captain. You play Call Me Captain, C's on Anakin. Now you have a 9-dice melee swing.
Yeah, it's an ambush plus, 3. Basically.
Yeah, you're literally like literally anything he's in contact with is probably dead from Pierce 3, unless it's immune. But even so, it's still 9 red, possibly surgeon crit. It's pretty good, okay?
I mean,
let's just make no mistake about that.
that feels a little bit like a win more, but I see where
Well, no, hold on. To not put it in a situation that is like almost like a birthday present. I was like, when I was playing Rex Kenobi R2D2, in your mind you have 3 1-pips that are viable. Because I am very big on how I play my Force user, I was bringing Ambush rather than Call Me Captain or Blast Off, which seems a little crazy, but it's naked R2, and he's either going to score or he's not going to score. His purpose in the Rex Kenobi list was to be an activation padding, right? Now with this card, and let's say I go back to playing Rex Kenobi, I can bring C's on Kenobi, right? In theory, right? Bring Call Me Captain. So now I have a card that benefits Rex, but also benefits Kenobi. Whereas I was taking Ambush because I felt more comfortable doing that. But now I have that option if I want it.
Right.
It takes a lot of the danger out of playing 1-pips. And just to be clear, David, you could already do what you just outlined, just better, with an uplink on a full arc.
I mean, yeah.
when you split fire into 3 different units,
you don't have
Call Me Captain 3 times.
You don't have to point out that arcs are busted. That's fine.
I just it is what it is. But I get what you're trying to say.
Right. It's pretty nasty. There's some stuff you can do with this card that is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it turns a lot of 1-pips on their head. It gives any army with multiple characters, all the characters with C's have multiple 1-pips, right?
Yeah.
Which is dramatically different than what it used to be.
Yeah, and how did I not lead off with the fact that now every Rebel army with a hero with a training can run Blast Off with a relative safety?
Right.
If you don't really care about the effects of the 1-pip that you're giving up.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running like Operative Luke and R2, you just throw C's on Luke, take Blast Off. Now you don't really need to pick anymore, right?
Yeah, and like Operative Luke Gunline, serving Master well is like, it's okay. But Blast Off wins games.
Right.
So
exactly.
And semi-reliably, because it's the difference between 0 and 1 VP.
Yeah.
That's massive.
now you got me running and thinking like Operative Luke with Sabine, but now Sabine can take her 2-pip, which she couldn't before because it never gave an order to Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like Luke, Sabine and some Mandalorians. Like
right. This makes Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, now all of a sudden, if you throw uplink on your Mandalorian, I mean, it's expensive, don't get me wrong, but you have uplink on your Mandalorians, you got Sabine with an order, Luke can seize the initiative, you got orders on the key pieces of your army, which you never had before. It's just such a good card. It's so universally good.
The pain of taking the operatives lessens significantly because of this card. And also, let's also not forget, My Ally is the Force, No Time for Sorrow is all trigger when you get this card out because it's face up. It's not limited to the ordering unit.
Right.
So any of those cards, Discipline, any of those, you get recover.
The artwork on this card is fantastic too.
Mm-hmm. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Jyn is like doing her thing where she's pulling away from the stormtrooper and blasting them. It's such a good piece of artwork.
Yeah, got the windswept hair, action shot. Yeah, it's fabulous. This is, I think, one of those cards that even months from now, people are still going to be finding like unique and new competitive uses for.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most diverse. Maybe diverse is the wrong word, but will be probably one of the most common upgrades that we see in Legion generally, and probably for the lifetime of the game, frankly. I mean, everybody's always wanted to put HQ uplinks on their heroes. This is basically it. You generally only need it once. And yeah.
It's very competitively priced for the benefit.
Oh, totally. Yeah. 5 points. This
5 points.
Is it 5 or 6?
It's
5.
It's 5.
Sold.
Yeah, it's a steal.
Yeah.
Super steal.
No, training is a very competitive slot too.
That's true.
Sure. But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way: are you gonna if you're taking offensive push on a unit that I guess you might get 2 uses out of it on some units that refresh, but like, is that aim more valuable than an order on the turn you won't get an order on? Absolutely not.
I mean,
like,
no.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, at least in my mind, it isn't. Of note, this makes Anakin and what I'm assuming Maul will have a very similar kit. Something that you're probably going to want to buy to have these upgrade cards, even if you have no intentions of playing Anakin or Maul. I'm straight up assuming about Maul. I could be wrong, and maybe he doesn't come with defensive stance, offensive stance, C's, and force barrier. But a lot of the times when 2 units come out together, they have similar cards. We don't know when they will come in other kits. So it kind of makes it important to probably buy these units to make sure you get those cards, even if you're buying it for Palpatine or Operative Luke. And let's say you don't collect Republic or, droids, because these cards, like we've noted on the cast here, are really good. Like these upgrade cards are really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll put these cards into Rebel and Imperial kits when they're relevant, right? Like,
of course.
I mean, I could see C's in like either Lando or Kallus. They both seem like characters where that upgrade would make sense, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know if telling people to buy specifically Republic and Separatist things if you're not playing those factions, like I think that the devs are pretty aware fundamentally that they don't want to gate things behind product you don't need. They've been pretty outspoken about that, and I feel pretty confident that they're gonna go out of their way to make sure that doesn't happen. So,
of course, I'm talking about in the now.
Something like force barrier is a little bit more complicated. Like, obviously, like Kallus and Lando aren't force users, right? unless I've missed a lore point at some junction. So I think an upgrade like that, the conversation is probably a little different. Like, we don't see any force users coming down the pipe, for those factions right now. So that doesn't make a ton of sense to put in those kits. I don't know.
Well, here's a good question. And before we close this out, Kyle, did Obi-Wan Essen come with cards, or was it just the model?
Oh, no, he came with cards. It was actually hilarious because he came with both German and English copies of the cards. So
I wonder if this is something. Oh man!
Don't say it. I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going.
Don't do it.
But it could be something that is in the Luke. It could be something in there. I know it'd be bad. It would be bad.
So I don't think that would be the case. I don't know if it was the case with your Kenobi, but my Vader, the operative Vader, came with all of the things that he came with the core set with. Like he didn't have upgrades. They were like later released, I don't think, and I might have to double check that. But I don't think like there was no anger in the operative Vader, stuff. I'll go check that, but or fear. Like, I don't think those were in the specialty box or whatever.
They've been, I would hold off and see what happens. They've been very outspoken that you should not have to buy stuff outside your faction to get specific cards. So we don't know exactly how that's going to work with these, but if you want one of these cards and you're not a GAR or a CIS player, just wait and see what happens. And
yeah, it's not like there's like a lot of paper events. I say paper, like Magic. A lot of physical events where you're going to be required to have cards in the near future.
We can afford to like see how this is going to work out, because I don't think that they're suddenly going to just break that. It was such a big thing with X-Wing. I don't see them suddenly like breaking that promise to the Legion community. So
yeah, I think it's only something that popped in my head specifically because it's force cards. That's the real issue.
Totally.
Like not an issue per se, but as we've seen in this game that like force users are, I don't want to say few and far between, but like in a sense, they kind of are, right? Like how they come out isn't as drastic compared to like trooper units. You know what I mean?
Yep, totally. Yeah, we'll see. Just my advice would be to wait, and we'll see what happens. All right. Any final thoughts?
We are 2.5 hours into this podcast, plus or minus the time before we started the recording that I started recording. So
Monster.
I think we're probably at a point where we should wrap this up.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I'm Kyle.
I'm Mike.
I'm David.
I'm Zach.
We are the Notorious Scoundrels. Stay fresh, cheese bags.